our pro-gamer MC formed a high-tier fireball to vaporize his corrupt enemies. He makes deals with terrifying ancient demons who scream directly in his face and steal his first kiss. He commands the fierce loyalty of the most dangerous master swordsman in the territory. You would think our boy is the ultimate final boss of this fantasy world, but the reality is he reincarnated as this 300-pound obese trash noble. In his previous life, he pushed his physical body way too far and died in his chair. He wakes up gasping for air, in a cold sweat, trapped inside a fantasy body he doesn't recognize. He stares at the maid in complete confusion. Then the sheer panic sets in, because he knows his character has a massive lifespan debuff, and he knows exactly what happens next in the game's lore. A massive war is coming to wipe out every living soul on this continent. He lies on the floor utterly defeated. He trembles and accepts reality, but he refuses to be a victim. Our boy decides he is not going to die again. The original owner of this body was a total monster. His personal maid flinches in terror, expecting to be hit just for making a simple mistake. But this new version pulls her into a tight hug. He begs for her forgiveness. He promises to change his ways for good. He smiles warmly at her. She buries her face in his chest and breaks down. The sudden kindness completely shatters her. He secures her unbreakable devotion. Because our MC can read her hidden system stats, he knows she is secretly destined to be an S-rank healer. Next, he focuses on upgrading his physical vessel. He shoves handfuls of raw medical herbs down his throat. He stares at the plate, realizing it tastes like actual dog vomit. He gags and chokes it down anyway. He chews through the intense pain. It triggers a hidden lipolysis game mechanic, burning away pounds of fat in seconds. The system melts away his double chins instantly. Real quick, 99% of you are not subscribed. Drop a fast like and sub to help us hit 1,000 so I can bring you more god-tier manhwas. Now let's get back to our boy. He grabs a cursed artifact left by his father. A dark portal rips open inside his bedroom. He summons a terrifying abyss spirit. Isabella demands a massive price to grant him the one skill he desperately needs. Knowing everything comes at a cost, he realizes she can read his mind. She smirks and closes the distance. She steals his 34-year-old virgin first kiss, leaving him lying on the floor feeling sick to his stomach. But the sacrifice locks in the magical contract. He gains the Mind Eye, a cheat ability that lets him read the hidden nature of anyone, which brings him straight to the territory's chief guard. Gragas is a corrupt traitor who mocks the previous lord's death and physically bumps heads with the loyal knights. He chugs alcohol and thinks he runs the entire territory. He crashes a formal meeting by slamming his fist on the table. He expects zero resistance from the fat noble, but our MC flips the script. He shatters the traitor's bottle with a high-speed magic missile. The corrupt guard grinds his teeth in shock. Our boy stares him down from his chair. Gragas glares right back, but the lord uses his mind eye to expose every single criminal operation, illegal taxes and human trafficking. The traitor panics and falls backward over his chair as his empire crumbles. The remaining nobles drop to their knees in terror. The loyal knight watches in awe. Our MC promotes him to the highest rank on the spot. Rakiz bows his head and swears his sword to the new master. They raid the traitor's hidden camps. Rakiz marches in with furious intent. He crushes the abusers into the ground. He screams at them to face justice. They lock the corrupt slavers in heavy iron chains, marching them through the snow. Justice is officially delivered to the people. The citizens who used to spit on the Lord's name now crowd the streets to cheer for his victory. But running a small town is not the endgame. He drinks his tea and reviews the latest reports. He commands a loyal army of knights. His right-hand man supports his vision. He plans to conquer the entire map. To do that, he needs far more magical power. He sits on the floor and prepares to cheat the system. He forces raw mana through his body to shatter his human limits. He is a bug player exploiting reality itself. Rakiz bursts into the room with an urgent report. His search party discovered a bandit camp operating in the old coal mines. The worst part is the human cargo. The bandits are holding slaves. Our boy goes wide-eyed with pure rage. He orders his men to prepare for an immediate raid. We cut back in time to meet a tiny, blonde orphan named Lena. She has bright red eyes and a massive smile. A woman from the mercenary guild promises her a bright future. Lena shows off her natural strength by lifting a massive wooden barrel. Time passes. She turns 14 and expects to start working. She walks with the orphanage director, full of hope. She tells him she wants to join the mercenary group. She stands tall and states she wants to be a swordsman instead of a maid. The mercenary leader laughs at her big dreams. He shows off his massive sword skills. He grips his blade and warns her the world is dangerous. But he adds that gender means nothing. Only spirit and effort matter in combat. The female merc pats her head and promises to hire her. Lena beams with pure joy, but fantasy worlds are ruthless. The screen goes dark. We see a glimpse of Lena's future character card. The orphanage director holds her small hand. He smiles like a literal saint. Lena smiles back, completely trusting him. The truth drops. The slaver boss laughs and reveals the director sold her for cash. Lena screams in pure denial. The bandits mock her slave status. A guard grips a leather whip. He strikes strikes her with zero hesitation. Lena collapses in the dirt, grabbing her bruised face. She cries out, still refusing to believe the betrayal. A month passes. Lena sits trapped behind heavy iron bars. She meets a red-haired girl named Mani. Mani explains the grim reality. The neighboring lord of Mayarika runs a massive human trafficking ring. She tells Lena to give up any hope of escape. Lena glares at the ground. She refuses to surrender. Mani picks her nose and finds the stubbornness hilarious. She introduces herself with a casual smile. The two girls form an unlikely bond in the dark. Another month passes. They carry heavy baskets of rocks. The other slaves act like lifeless puppets. Lena holds her head high, determined to survive. Half a year later, they stare at a boiling pot of terrible soup. Mani explains the outside world to pass the time. Lena asks how she gathers so much information. Mani smiles and taps her ear. She listens to the guards. She reminds Lena that no mercenaries will ever come to save them. Lena clenches her fists in sheer defiance. Mani spits on the ground and gets back to work. The harsh winter winds howl outside the mine. A full year passes. They turn 15. Mani collapses on the stone floor. She coughs and burns up with a severe fever. Lena sits helpless by her side. Outside the cell, the guards drink and complain about the new lord. One of them takes a deep swig from his metal mug. Lena grips the iron bars. She begs for a single bowl of soup to save her friend. She drops to her knees and promises absolute obedience. The guard tosses a bowl of slop on the table. The slaver boss Ched shows up. He grabs Lena by the neck. He tells her the sick girl will eat fine on her own. He pulls Lena close with a twisted smile. Mani forces herself up and bites Ched's arm. The boss recoils in pain. Mani grabs Lena's hand. She drags her friend toward the exit and screams to run. Lena looks back in sheer panic. Mani yells at her to escape. Ched recovers. He reaches out with a massive hand. He catches Lena by the hair and yanks her back. He draws his blade with murderous intent. Mani jumps in front of the attack. The slaver crushes her with a brutal backhand strike. Lena catches her falling friend. Mani bleeds out on the cold stone. She admits her life was always trash. She remembers Lena's dream of becoming a swordsman. She smiles, covered in her own blood. She tells Lena to never give up. Her eyes go blank. Lena loses her mind. Tears stream down her face as pure rage takes over. The guard steps back in fear. Ched grabs Lena by the hair again. He grips his sword and threatens to kill her too. A massive explosion of fire interrupts the execution. Our MC stands with his hand outstretched, smoke rising from his palm. We jump back to see Jared and Rakiz standing before the massive iron doors. Jared explains the slavers have nowhere else to hide. Rakiz smiles at his lord's keen insight. Our boy addresses his loyal troops. They stand ready in the freezing snow. He orders them to rescue the enslaved. He gives one absolute command: leave 0 slavers alive. Jared leads the charge with a war cry. Rakiz and the vanguard breach the gates and clash with the bandits. The guards panic and call for their boss. Rakiz slices through a bandit with zero hesitation. He punches another one straight in the jaw. The loyal knights overwhelm the criminal scum. Jared navigates the dark, rocky tunnels. He orders a complete sweep of the area. His eyes burn with determination. Back to the present. Ched clutches his burnt face in agony. He screams as the flames consume him. Jared steps forward, his hand radiating raw magical heat. He crushes the ground beneath his boots. He drops to one knee and checks on Lena. She stares forward with empty, traumatized eyes. Her best friend lies dead on the stone floor. Jared analyzes the situation. Healing magic cannot save the dead girl. He pulls the broken survivor into a warm embrace. He feels her thin, malnourished frame and gnarled fingers. Ched stumbles forward, drunk and furious. He insults Jared, calling him a fat pig. Our MC turns around. His eyes glow blue. He promises to end this man's life. Ched laughs. He thinks he can outmagic a noble. He prepares to unleash raw lightning magic. Jared casts haste. He covers the distance in a fraction of a second. The slaver panics at the impossible speed. Haste is a dangerous spell that most magicians avoid. Ched prepares to blast the entire room. Jared fires a barrage of precise magic missiles straight into his face. He roasts the slaver with pinpoint accuracy. The villain falls backward, completely defeated. The system rewards Jared with massive loyalty points. Caribia enters a golden age. Rakiz rounds up the surviving criminals to be executed. Inside a warm carriage, Lena looks at her savior. He promises she will never be sold again. He invites her to live in his territory. He vows to make her a great swordsman. The kid throws her hands up in pure joy. Jared uses his mind eye to confirm her identity. In the game's lore, Lena Giselle becomes a legendary vanguard. Our MC smiles and holds her small hand. He just secured the most overpowered tank on the continent. In the neighboring Mayarika territory, a massive estate looms in the dark. The rival crime lord Frua smokes his pipe. He is sick of hearing about Caribia's success. A masked man assures him the problem will be handled. Frua smiles, plotting his revenge. Night falls over Caribia. The masked assassin leaps across the rooftops. He lands silently in the shadows. He glares down at the streets, planning his strike. Morning arrives. Jared runs through the snow, gasping for air. He pushes his physical body to the limit to build stamina. He asks Lena how she feels. She smiles brightly. She loves the fresh air. A nearby guard watches them in shock. Back inside, Jared eats his meal. Hayes hands him an urgent letter. Lena asks for the news. The farming head reports massive success with the new crops. Monster hunters are bringing in double the mana stones. The economy is booming. Lena beams with pride for her new home. Jared smiles, knowing the whole continent will soon recognize them. Rakiz interrupts. He brings a grim report. He leads Jared outside to a dark alley. Someone dumped a rotting monster corpse right inside their borders. Rakiz bows his head in shame for the security breach. Jared tells him not to blame himself. Our boy connects the dots. This is biological warfare. In the market, a little girl named Mia begs a merchant. The merchant refuses to give her the medicine she needs. Jared approaches from behind. The merchant panics and recognizes the Lord. Mia cries and explains her mother is sick. She has Ronella's disease. Jared's eyes widen. The merchant defends himself, saying the disease is incurable. It normally requires a blessing from the Pope or a legendary potion. The disease corrupts the lungs like a magical tuberculosis. Jared drops to one knee and asks Mia to lead the way. He tells her he knows how to treat it. They arrive at a small old wooden house. Jared climbs the stairs to the second floor. The mother coughs up black blood into a towel. A system warning confirms she has 7 months to live. Jared tells her to rest easy. He refuses to take any payment. Mia smiles with pure hope. The mother recognizes Jared from 8 years ago. She used to be a chef for a high-rank expedition team. Jared covers his face in embarrassment for his past behavior. Mary warns him to stay back so he avoids infection. Jared tells Mia to fetch a wet towel. He walks over and shuts the wooden window tight. He remembers the rotting monster corpse. Mary admits she used to harvest monster corpses. That explains the exposure. The disease spreads through toxic mana, not normal contact. Mary accepts her grim fate. Hayes bursts through the door carrying a massive sack of medical herbs. Jared crosses his arms with absolute confidence. Mary smiles, grateful for his kindness. Jared gets to work. On the roof outside, the masked assassin watches. He thinks the Lord is spouting nonsense. Rakiz appears right behind him, sword drawn. The killer realizes he walked straight into a trap. Rakiz glares with glowing blue eyes. He knows this man planted the corpse. Inside the house, Jared prepares the basic herbs. The people of this world think the disease is incurable, but our MC remembers a forum post. A nerd solved the puzzle 10 years ahead of schedule. Jared crushes the ingredients. Mary wonders why a high-ranking noble is working so hard to save her. A person who has experienced pain understands it best. He sits on the floor and mixes the potion. Lena and Mia watch in total silence. Jared holds Mary's hand. In his past life, he watched his own mother suffer in a hospital bed. He remembers the crushing guilt of being powerless. He refuses to let history repeat itself. He holds up the finished red potion. He administers the cure. The fatal disease vanishes. Up on the roof, Rakiz lunges at the assassin with a lethal strike. The masked killer blocks the heavy blow. Rakiz counters with a vicious swing. The assassin struggles against the sheer brute force. Rakiz lands a devastating punch straight to the killer's jaw. The assassin staggers backward, completely off balance. Rakiz taunts him. He pushes forward, his blade sparking against the roof tiles. The assassin realizes the chief guard is way stronger than reported. Rakiz leaps into the air for a final strike. Rakiz possesses a special justice tendency. It breaks his physical limits when fighting evil opponents. His eyes glow with raw blue energy. He tells the assassin to surrender. The killer admits he planned to murder the guard, but he knows he is outmatched. He refuses to die today. He bites down on a hidden pill. A massive cloud of magical fog erupts from his mouth. Rakiz waves his sword to clear the smoke. The assassin is gone. Back inside, Jared teaches Mia how to manipulate raw mana. He explains the difference between basic associative magic and force condensation. He warns her about evil magicians corrupting the surrounding mana. Mia grasps the concept quickly. Jared tells her she must train both methods to survive. She points out his ridiculous costume. Jared rips off a fake mustache. He was trying to look like a wise teacher. Lena calls them down for food. Jared smiles and heads to the dining room. Mary stands proud in her chef uniform. Isabella pops her terrifying face out of the ceiling. Her red eyes glow in the dark room. She looks furious. Jared sits outside, forcing raw mana through his body. The system registers his bizarre recycling technique as an authentic skill. He officially names his cheat method. Isabella floats down and points out his unnatural mana draw. Jared claims he learned it from old myths. Isabella suspects he is a transmigrator from the legendary Eastern continent. She blushes and demands he treat her well. She considers the cheat skill a wedding present for her future husband. She licks her lips, entirely obsessed with him. She reminds him he already gave her his first kiss. Jared ignores his crazy demon stalker and bolts out the door. Inside the carriage, Lena reads a letter from Rakiz. Jared smiles, knowing her potential. He promises to find her a proper teacher. He reviews his mental list of candidates. An arrow shatters the carriage window, grazing Hayes' magic shield. Our boy realizes they are under attack. Hayes draws a weapon to protect her lord. Another volley of arrows strikes strikes the magical barrier. Jared grabs Hayes and pulls her down. He yells at her for acting recklessly. She insists it is her duty to protect him. Jared scolds her and tells her to stay put. Raquise steps out into the snow with a massive mana shield protecting the group. He deflects the incoming projectiles. The bandits realize a magician is riding in the carriage. A massive brute steps out of the treeline carrying a giant axe. Jared listens to their conversation using his enhanced senses. Tog, the predatory murderer of magicians, charges forward to finish the job. Tog charges through the snow, fully expecting to cleave a helpless noble in half. He brings the massive executioner's axe down with bone-crushing momentum. Jared steps out of the way before the blade even bites the dirt. Our boy casts haste. His eyes ignite with raw magical energy. He jams his hand straight into the giant's face and detonates a spell point blank. Tog tries to counter, but Jared's mana shield eats the impact like it never happened. The Lord unleashes a barrage of heavy magical blows across the bandit's chest. Tog crosses his arms, desperate to weather the onslaught. The sheer kinetic force shatters his defensive stance into pieces. But the giant's underlings grin. They think their boss can outlast a noble's limited mana pool. Tog swings a heavy wooden club, aiming for a lethal headshot. Jared catches the weapon barehanded. He activates a strength-boosting artifact, overpowering a giant twice his size on physical stats alone. Tog realizes his intel was a lie. He begs for his life and offers to sell out his client. Jared smiles and hefts the massive executioner's axe over his shoulder. He delivers the final verdict. Caribia has zero tolerance for bandits. Down in the holding cells, a young merchant sits trapped in the dark. Aki curses his own terrible luck. He hired cheap guards and ended up as Tog's prisoner. He hears voices outside and hopes a rescue party has finally arrived. Instead, Tog stands outside the bars, mocking the kid before the upcoming execution. We see a flashback. Tog takes a heavy bag of gold from a cloaked figure. The spy from Mayarika watches the carriage ambush from the shadows. He realizes his intel was dead wrong. The fat noble is actually a combat-ready battle mage. He decides to retreat before he gets caught in the crossfire. Back in the cell, Aki hears the sounds of battle echoing outside the mine. He peers through the iron door as a burst of light illuminates the snowy woods. Tog's men scream in terror as their invincible leader goes down. Jared stands victorious in the burning wreckage of the ambush. Aki stares at his savior. To him, the young lord looks like a literal god descending from the heavens. The kid is so overwhelmed with gratitude, he throws his arms around Jared's waist. He blushes and apologizes for losing his composure. Inside the carriage, Jared offers a formal apology. The security in his territory is still lacking. Aki waves it off. He is just thrilled to still be breathing. Jared uses the mind eye to check the kid's hidden stats. He recognizes him instantly. Aki is destined to become a legendary merchant pioneer in the game's lore. Our MC calculates the possibilities. Securing this kid's loyalty is a massive win. He decides to offer the bankrupt merchant a chance to rebuild his fortune. Jared wants Aki to sell the Ronella's disease cure on his behalf for a 15% cut. The young merchant rubs his chin. He knows an opportunity when he sees one, but Aki declines the money. He wants Jared to grant him 2 personal wishes instead. Hayes glares at the kid, insulted by the audacity of the counteroffer. Aki promises to find the absolute best market for the cure if Jared agrees. He reveals his first wish. He just wants the Lord to call him by his actual name. Jared agrees. The ghost of Isabella shrieks in jealousy from the ceiling. They arrive in the Ronella territory. The sprawling city looks far more developed than Caribia. Aki unloads the cargo. He explains that dungeons bring massive wealth and desperate hunters to this specific region. Jared observes the bustling marketplace. He knows this place is a goldmine waiting to be tapped. He thanks Aki for finding the perfect location to set up shop. They step into a quiet back alley to prepare the merchandise. Jared exploits a massive game bug. He forces the system to recognize his manual mixing as high-level production. He hands the very first bottle of the red cure to Aki. Aki spots a sick hunter coughing up blood and offers him a special discount. 1 gold coin. The desperate hunter hands over his last piece of money. Aki forces him to sign a strict ownership transfer contract before handing over the bottle. The hunter squints at the paperwork, confused by the strange legal demand. He chugs the glowing red liquid anyway. He warns Aki that if this is a scam, he will return with his sword drawn. Jared smiles and promises a full 1,000 gold refund if it fails. The man walks away. The trap is officially set. Jared continues brewing potions. The system alerts ring out as his proficiency skyrockets. He explains the game mechanics to Hayes. Potion brewing normally comes with a 24-hour cooldown penalty, but by forcing the customer to sign a contract, the system registers the buyer as the owner. The penalty transfers to the sick hunter, allowing Jared to bypass the cooldown entirely. Bro is playing 4D chess with reality. 2 hours later, they wait by the storefront. The ground begins to tremble. A massive cloud of dust kicks up at the end of the street. Hayes panics as a horde of screaming hunters charges directly at them. The cured hunter leads the pack. He is glowing with perfect health and pointing straight at Aki. The crowd slams into the stall, waving bags of gold and demanding the miracle cure. Hayes gets crushed against the wall by the desperate desperate mob. Jared smiles. The marketing strategy worked flawlessly. The local merchants watch in shock. They cannot believe Caribia solved the incurable disease. Aki stands on a crate, hyping up the crowd like a professional auctioneer. He tells the hunters that future stock will only be sold within Caribia's borders. He offers the remaining bottles at a massive discount compared to the Empire's prices. The mob erupts into cheers. They shove their gold forward, desperate to survive. By the end of the day, Jared counts the haul. 12,000 gold coins. Astronomical wealth. Late that night, Jared sits awake in his room. Aki slips through the door holding a single gold coin. He has come to cash in his second wish. The young merchant drops his playful attitude. He looks dead serious. He drops to one knee and asks to become a sworn vassal of Caribia. Aki holds up the coin. He survived getting robbed, and he wants to build the greatest trading company in the north. Jared looks down at the kid. He was already planning to hire him, but seeing the raw ambition makes the choice easy. He officially appoints Aki as the deputy of trade for the entire territory. He smiles warmly at his newest recruit. Aki bows his head, pledging his loyalty to the lord who saved his life. The next morning, Jared steps out onto the balcony, taking in the crisp air. He looks out over his thriving lands. Back in Caribia, Hayes oversees the new automated potion factory. The production lines hum with magic, churning out thousands of gold coins in revenue every single day. Jared's trusted steward inspects the nightmare stones brought in by the influx of new hunters. Merchants from across the continent flock to the borders, desperate to get a piece of the booming economy. Jared rides his black horse away from the city. Isabella floats beside him, screaming at him to turn around. He tells her casually that he is going to hunt a lich. The ancient demon loses her mind. She calls him a crazy bastard. She warns him that a lich will steal his soul and turn him into a mindless undead slave. Jared isn't bothered. He already memorized the boss's entire attack pattern in his past life. He knows exactly how to exploit the monster's weaknesses. Isabella glares at him. He possesses knowledge that no human should have. They arrive at the sanctum of Lich Del Luke, a frozen fortress carved out of solid ice. Jared searches the dark cavern walls outside the main gate. He runs his hands over the stone, looking for a specific texture. Isabella watches him act like a bloodhound. The main path is a death trap filled with crushing mechanisms and spikes. Frozen corpses of failed adventurers litter the entrance. Jared presses his glowing hand against a seemingly solid wall. The rock dissolves, revealing a hidden passage. He smirks. It is a map glitch from the original game that the developers never patched out. This bug allows him to bypass every single trap and drop directly into the boss room. They step inside the secret chamber. Mountains of gold and glowing weapons illuminate the dark. Jared searches the shelves, ignoring the basic gold. He is here for the legendary loot. He picks up a gold ring shaped like lips. It functions as an infinitely large pocket dimension. Isabella watches in disbelief as he vacuums the entire treasure hoard into the tiny ring. He equips 3 massive stat-boosting artifacts: Saint Ephinus's ring, Sage Gorgeous's necklace, and Queen Mariella's earrings. His power level skyrockets. They approach the central throne room. Lich Del Luke sits chained to the stone, radiating an aura of pure death. The monster vows to break free and turn all humans into suffering undead. Jared steps up and pats the terrifying lich on its bald skull like a misbehaving dog. He unleashes a blinding burst of fire magic straight into the boss's face. Jared stares down the monster. He declares himself the hero of this world. Del Luke is furious. His skull burns with dark purple flames as he demands to know how a human bypassed his traps. Jared doesn't answer. He strikes again with a massive wave of golden energy. He grips his wand, eyes locked on the target. The boss fight has officially begun. The lich glares through the flames, enraged by the sheer disrespect. Jared leaps backward to put distance between them. He explains the lore to Isabella. Del Luke traded his humanity for power, but his life vessel was stolen by a saint. Now he is permanently bound to this physical spot. He dodges a massive purple explosion that shatters the floor tiles. Jared counters with a fierce stream of lightning magic. The lich swats the attack away like an annoying fly. Del Luke mocks the weak spell. He realizes Jared is only a mid-tier magician, but the flames clinging to the lich's bones refuse to go out. The divine attribute burns right through his dark resistance. The monster realizes Jared looted his private vault and stole the power-amplifying ring. Jared dashes in, cloaked in fire, smashing his wand directly into the boss's chained arm. The strategy is simple but flawless. Attack relentlessly before the lich can finish casting a spell. Jared slides across the ice, his wand glowing blue as he readies another strike. Del Luke laughs. The human is fast, but the sanctum belongs to him. He summons a horde of massive, heavily armored undead knights from the shadows. Isabella panics. Jared smiles. He knew this phase was coming. He charges straight into the undead mob, relying entirely on close-quarters combat. Isabella dives in to intercept an incoming strike, protecting her master's blind spot. A massive skeleton warrior winds up for a devastating horizontal slash. Del Luke fires a purple energy blast directly at Jared's chest. Jared praises Isabella for taking the aggro. He casts Lightning Spear, throwing a concentrated bolt of raw electricity. The spell connects, shocking the lich and interrupting his next attack. Jared Jared smirks. He created his own custom magic combinations. He tosses a wooden log into the air to draw the boss's attention. He strikes the lich from the side, bringing the undead king down to his knees. Jared readies the final blow. He channels raw divine energy into his hands. Luke screams in fury and casts Life Drain, attempting to suck Jared's soul out. Jared swings his wand like a baseball bat, shattering the incoming spell. He pushes forward, his eyes burning red as he activates his mind eye to find the core. He lands the strike. Luke wails as the taste of actual death finally catches up to him. The monster erupts in dark energy. He transforms into the Plague Bringer. Massive purple explosions rock the cavern as the second phase begins. Shadowy tendrils shoot across the room, seeking anything alive. Jared hides behind a magical barrier, calculating the trajectory of every strike. He evades a massive spike of dark ice that nearly impales him. The sheer scale of the magic leaves our MC sweating. The boss is pushing him to the limit. The giant skeleton leg crashes down, shattering the floor where Jared stood a second ago. He dashes beneath the boss, refusing to back down. He weaves through the chaotic purple blasts. He knows every single one of Deluxe's attack patterns from his gaming days. He predicts the dodge trajectory before the lich even moves. Luke drops a massive shadow hand to crush the annoying human. Jared sidesteps the impact. The ground caves in behind him. The lich acknowledges the speed. Jared glares back from the shadows. He casts Blink, teleporting past the defensive guard. Luke realizes Jared has been holding back his strongest magic this entire time. Jared bites his thumb, confident in his victory. He casts Holy Chain Bond, a brilliant cross of light that slices through the dark energy. The lich howls in agony as the holy attribute burns his core. Jared leaps into the air and drives his wand straight down. The impact obliterates the skeletal structure. The cavern falls silent. The dark energy dissipates into the air. Jared stares at the black stain on the floor. The crushed skull of the lich lies ruined in the center. The lingering spirit asks how a mere fourth-class mage pulled this off. Luke demands to know what Jared really wants from this world. Our MC looks down with absolute coldness. He wants the ultimate symbol of monarchy. The lich laughs, calling it an impossible dream. He promises to watch Jared fail from the depths of hell. The red glow fades from his empty eye sockets. Jared stretches his arms, exhausted but victorious. He knows he has to keep getting stronger. He picks up the legendary drop, Luke's bracelet, a growth-type artifact. He kisses the golden band in pure joy. Isabella spots a book lying in the dirt nearby. Jared picks it up. It is a unique drop that never existed in the game. It is Lich Deluxe Resurrection Magic, a spell that binds a spirit to a human body, making them completely obedient to the caster. Isabella immediately demands Jared tie himself up to test it. Our boy wraps thick red ropes around his torso. He tells her to hit him with her strongest curses. The unhinged training method works. He raises his magic resistance drastically by face-tanking her spells. Isabella stares at him, genuinely disturbed by his methods, but she agrees to help him test the revival spell anyway. They approach the glass revival vats hidden in the back of the lab. Fast forward. Isabella is now occupying a physical human body. She forces Jared to carry her on his back because she refuses to walk. She complains about the cold. Jared yells at her to hurry up. He curses the dead lich for leaving behind such revealing clothes in the vats. He notices Isabella hasn't changed her demanding personality at all. They walk down a long, dark corridor lined with the remains of fallen adventurers. Jared notes that all the innermost traps have been disabled over time. Isabel clings to his back, resting her head on his shoulder. They find another glass tube containing the body of a beautiful blonde woman. Isabel hopes the original soul moved on peacefully. Living as an evil spirit is a lonely existence. Jared smiles. He promises to make her new life incredibly fun. Isabel throws her arms up, demanding fancy dresses and delicious food. She looks at Jared with a genuine smile. She likes this new arrangement. Our MC agrees. Having a loyal powerhouse by his side is going to make the future a lot less boring. Meanwhile, in the Mayarica territory, a subordinate reports that Caribia is hoarding the Ronella cure. The man admits they secured a sample, but recreating the formula is impossible. Lord Horgus loses his mind. He grabs the poor guy by the face and screams at him for being useless. He throws a book at the fleeing servant. He is furious that Jared is ruining his monopoly. He slams his fist on the desk. We see Horgus sitting on his throne, holding a woman. He rules Mayarica with an iron fist. The assassin Lucas kneels before him, reporting on Caribia's military strength. Lucas states they have over 1,000 skilled men ready to attack. Horgus realizes Jared is no longer the fat pig he used to be. He regrets not poisoning him years ago. Down in the dungeons, Lucas executes the traitor guard Gragas to tie up loose ends. An older man wearing round glasses steps into the throne room. This is Akron, a high-ranking magician. He smiles, ready for business. He brought the mercenary mages Horgus requested. Horgus asks for his credentials. Akron confidently states he is a third-class magician. Akron claims he can wipe Caribia off the map if they attack right now. Horgus grins. He loves the sound of a total massacre. Back in Caribia, Jared and his team ride toward the edge of the northern woods. They approach a massive cliff bordering the ocean. This This land is highly contested. Jared explains they aren't here to fight. They are here to make a diplomatic deal with a hidden tribe. As they ride into the brush, glowing eyes watch them from the high rocks. Dozens of red goblins emerge from hiding, completely surrounding the group. Rakiz immediately barks orders, forming a defensive perimeter around his lord. An old goblin wearing ceremonial robes and heavy beads steps through the crowd. He introduces himself as Zabanaba, the leader of the red goblins. Jared steps forward respectfully. He greets the leader in his own dialect. Abanaba narrows his eyes. He asks what a human wants with his people. Jared cuts straight to the chase. He wants to establish a trade route for iron and gold. The goblins drag a heavy wooden cart forward, demanding to see what Jared has to offer. Jared pulls back the tarp, revealing a mountain of glowing nightmare stones. The guards whisper in confusion. Those stones are common trash found all over the forest. Abanaba picks up a stone, inspecting the cut and clarity. He glares at Jared. Then a massive smile breaks across his face. He loves it. Abanaba shakes Jared's hand, officially declaring Caribia a brother territory. Jared smiles. The diplomatic victory was flawlessly executed. The goblins cheer and haul out massive sacks of refined iron and solid gold bars. Abanaba holds a nightmare stone up to the light, completely obsessed with its beauty. Rakiz watches quietly. He realizes his lord manipulated a cultural difference to secure massive wealth. The goblins throw a massive celebration to honor the new trade deal. Abanaba calls out to the bushes, telling the hidden guards they can drop the stealth. A squad of dark elves steps out from the treeline, led by a fierce female warrior. The Caribbean guards tense up. Dark elves are notoriously hostile to humans. Jared explains the lore to Rakiz. The elves live even further north and have a deep alliance with the goblins. This entire region operates on a delicate balance of power that Jared just successfully infiltrated. A massive werewolf joins the party. Abanaba's connections spread across every monster tribe in the north. Jared and Rakiz share a drink with the tribal leaders, cementing the peace treaty. On the ride back, Jared asks about the state of their military smithies. Rakiz reports they have the manpower but severely lack the metal to forge new weapons. Jared orders the new goblin iron to be used for mass-producing swords, spears, and arrows immediately. Abanaba watches them leave, munching on grapes. He knows Mayarika is a corrupt nest that will eventually strike. Jared had apologized privately for using the alliance as a deterrent against Mayarika. Abanaba didn't care. He hates Mayarika anyway and fully supports Jared's rise to power. The Goblin King raises his mug to the sky, toasting to the glory of Caribia. Jared drinks deep. Every single piece is moving exactly where he placed it on the board. Back at the Nasu Territory Mansion, Jared introduces Hayes to a new guest, a blonde noblewoman with sharp red eyes. This is Isabel in disguise. Isabel immediately tests her new body by casting an illusion spell on Jared. A giant phantom spider appears. She stares blankly, confused why his greatest fear is just a bug. Later, Hayes catches Jared holding a handful of wrapped candies. He explains he is handing them out as an anniversary present. Isabel challenges him. According to the game's calendar, today isn't a holiday. Jared smiles. In his past life on Earth, today is White Day, the day men give gifts to women. Isabel blushes, assuming it is a romantic gesture. Jared shatters the mood by announcing he gave candy to literally every single maid in the building. Isabel grabs him by the collar, furious that he won't give her his heart despite the magical contract binding their souls. Jared ignores her tantrum. He tells her they need to focus on raising their curse magic strength. Isabel gets a wicked idea. She points her finger and prepares to cast a raw sexual desire spell on him. Jared screams in pure panic, but the pink spell hits him dead center. After recovering, Jared reviews his nurturing project. Teaching talent grants him permanent stat boosts. Isabel and Lena are leveling up perfectly, but Hayes is stuck at 0%. She refuses to believe a simple maid can become a legendary healer. Jared sighs. He knows her mental block is the only thing holding her back. He realizes he has to force her into a situation where she has no choice but to awaken. He grips her hair in frustration. Her dedication to cleaning is ruining his grand strategy. Later, they sit in his study. The atmosphere is tense. Jared explains that a true healer must unite their body and mind. Hayes looks down, lacking confidence. The old veteran drinks tea, observing the situation. Jared rubs his forehead, trying to figure out how to shatter her pessimistic worldview. The older gentleman praises Jared's innovative thinking in front of the staff. Hayes tries to decline the compliments, insisting she isn't special. Jared watches her closely. He smiles. He knows exactly what tactic to use. The doors fly open. Jared bursts out, playing the role of the energetic leader to perfection. He decides to treat her entirely strictly, pushing her into high-stress scenarios. Suddenly, a cloaked assassin drops from the ceiling, blade drawn. The killer strikes. Jared falls to the floor, covered in blood. Hayes screams in pure horror. A guard yells that an assassin breached the manor and the doctors won't make it in time. Hayes trembles. She looks at her dying lord. Desperation shatters her mental block. She declares herself a healer and drops to her knees. Tears stream down her face. She channels raw green mana into her shaking hands. She begs the magic to work, refusing to let him die. A massive burst of pure healing energy erupts from her palms, bathing the room in green green light. 30 minutes later, Jared, the guard, and the assassin sit on the floor in timeout. Hayes is bawling her eyes out, furious at the cruel prank. Jared awkwardly explains he used animal blood to fake the injury so she would unlock her powers. Hayes screams at him. She thought she lost the most important person in her life. The fake assassin apologizes. It was all a setup. Hayes runs away crying. She hates seeing him hurt. The veteran shakes his head, disappointed by the reckless method. Back in Mayarika, look as the assassin reports that war costs money. Horgus orders him to infiltrate the manor again and kill Jared quietly to save on invasion costs. Flashback to the manor. Lucas attempts the assassination. Jared casually blocks the strike and kicks him in the chest. Lucas realizes he is outmatched and retreats into the shadows. But as he hides, he spots another group of killers moving through the halls. Jared senses the new presence. He demands the intruders show themselves. Late at night, a heavy blizzard hammers the northern woods. Jared walks through the snow to a remote cabin. An old veteran knight with a scar across his eye opens the door. The man invites him in for tea, surprised to see the Lord after 40 years. He throws another log onto the roaring fire. The veteran asks why Jared risked traveling into the deep nightmare forest. Jared places a bottle of the red cure on the table. The veteran recognizes the legendary medicine immediately. He admits he had doubts about Jared's leadership due to his terrible reputation. Rakiz steps forward, assuring the old man that the Lord has changed for the better. The veteran laughs. He refuses to join just for a potion. He demands proof that Caribia is actually worth fighting for. The narration shifts. The upcoming war will be the bloodiest conflict in the history of the Nasu continent. Death will ride across the land, crushing nobles and peasants alike. A heavy mug slams onto a wooden table in a loud tavern. Jared sits disguised in a green cloak, enjoying the local beer. A plate of fresh seafood arrives. Coastal access is one of their few advantages. Isabel complains about the freezing weather and the terrible food options. Hayes assures her the new fertilizers will yield better crops soon. She praises Jared for inventing the farming methods. Isabel asks what the local hunters think about all this. The hunters at the next table praise the new lord's leadership. Caribia is becoming a safe haven. They consider moving their entire guild headquarters to the territory. Isabel smirks. Sneaking out to gather intel was a great idea. Suddenly, a massive woman slams her empty mug down and demands another round. She has bright red hair, dark sunglasses, and an absolutely terrifying aura. Jared recognizes her instantly. Ella, a legendary NPC warrior known for her brutal strength. Isabel tries to keep Jared focused, warning him that Ella fights for whoever pays the most gold. The lore shows Ella fighting a minotaur. She is a true mercenary, but Jared's eyes lock onto the quiet elf sitting next to Ella. He uses the mind eye. It's Chloe, the queen of the Grey Elves, operating under absolute cloaking magic. Meeting two legendary figures in a random tavern is a massive stroke of luck. Jared activates his talent raider skill. His face twists into a greedy grin. He wants them on his payroll. He tells Isabel and Hayes to wait. He speedwalks over to the legends. Ella pulls down her sunglasses and glares at the kid, interrupting her drink. She tells him to piss off. She isn't interested in younger men. Hayes loses her temper. She screams at Ella to show some respect to the Viscount of Caribia. The entire tavern goes dead silent. The hunters stare in shock. Ella stands up. She towers over Hayes, radiating sheer murderous intent. Jared steps between them. He places a hand on Hayes' shoulder to calm her down. He looks up at Ella and offers a job. He will pay handsomely. Ella is caught off guard by the sheer confidence. They move to a private room. Jared drops the offer. 5,000 gold for 1 year plus a free mansion. The job? Teach a kid how to fight. Ella asks why he trusts them. Jared says he trusts the money. 5 billion won is enough to buy anyone's cooperation. The narration reveals Chloe's backstory. She is a wanderer who never found a place to call home. Ella smirks. She accepts the deal. The massive payout is too good to ignore. Later that night, Jared sits in his study. The problem of finding Lena a teacher is solved. He wears Gorz's necklace, an artifact that completely negates his need for sleep. He realizes he is already forgetting details from his past life. He needs to record his knowledge of the game's lore before his human memory fades entirely. He writes furiously in his journal. He closes the massive book titled Paradiso. Outside, Chloe is putting Lena through absolute hell. Lena drags a heavy wooden log across the dirt. Ella laughs, wondering if the kid is going to turn into a giant muscle monster. Chloe hasn't even broken a sweat yet. She runs effortlessly beside her struggling student. Ella warns Jared that there are plenty of talented kids in the world. She thinks whoever taught Lena the basics did a terrible job. Jared smiles. He knows Rakiz is a great guard, but he lacks the skills to train a legendary vanguard. Lena stands in a training ring. A magical device locked onto the wall targets her. Jared explains to Ella that this is a special training method from the Eastern continent. He exploits a system mechanic. Repeating the same block reduces XP gain, but cycling elements bypasses the penalty. Ella is genuinely impressed. Jared figured out exactly what Lena needed without ever using his mind eye. Lena deflects another blast. Her stats are skyrocketing by the minute. Back at the farms, the workers harvest massive, healthy crops. The agriculture chief, Oberon, arrives for an inspection. Akron. The farmers report that the pests have completely migrated to the Ronella territory. Ronella is begging to learn Caribia's secret to maintaining perfect crops. The old man cries tears of joy. The territory has finally stabilized. The farmers gather around, thanking the Lord for saving them from starvation. A massive system alert rings out. A golden age triggers. All production abilities in the territory are permanently boosted by 100%. Inside the manor, Hayes manages the massive influx of paperwork and gold. The city gates open to even more merchants. Akron, the magician from Mayarika, arrives holding a staff. He greets the Lord with an exaggerated, mocking bow. He claims he came to personally deliver a letter from Horgus. A quest window pops up. Diamond cuts diamond. Defeat the 4th-class magician to gain wisdom stats. Jared plays along. He welcomes the hostile messenger into his home. Akron laughs. He claims Horgus was very pleased and wants to build a deep friendship. Rakiz glares at the spy. He asks to see the official letter. Jared reads it. It is a pathetic, submissive letter written by Jared himself to bait Horgus into false confidence. Akron grins, assuming Caribia is terrified of Mayarika's military power. Jared plays the coward perfectly. He tells Akron he is always welcome in Caribia. Later, Jared and Rakiz go hunting. Jared aims a longbow into the trees. Rakiz asks why Jared is acting so submissive to the bastards who tried to kill him. Jared smiles. He explains that on the political battlefield, a fake smile is deadlier than a drawn sword. He wants Horgus to get careless. He wants them to think Caribia is weak and rich. He tells Rakiz that the real attack comes when the enemy drops their guard entirely. That night, they hold a massive feast for the troops. Everyone eats and drinks heavily. Rakiz finally understands the strategy. Jared isn't trying to avoid war. He is controlling when it starts. The spy Akron watches from the shadows, disgusted by the lack of discipline. Jared spots the spy using his mind eye. He knows exactly where Akron is hiding. He notes Akron's camouflage skill. It would fool anyone else. Jared glares into the darkness. The day Mayarika marches on Caribia will be the day they walk straight into hell. He throws up against a post, playing the role of a drunken fool perfectly. Fast forward to April 29th. The massive wooden gates of Mayarika open. Thousands of armored cavalry charge forward, marching toward Caribia. Lord Horgus leads the vanguard, his face twisted into a maniacal grin. He laughs. The invasion is finally underway. Back at the manor, Chloe stands silently in the courtyard. The place is completely empty. Ella walks up, confused by the sudden disappearance of the entire military force. Chloe orders Lena to run 20 laps. The training doesn't stop just because a war is starting. Out in the fields, a flaming boulder smashes into a wooden watchtower. The Mayarika army arrives. They launch a brutal siege on the border defenses. Horgus laughs as the Caribbean guards retreat in sheer panic. He cannot believe Jared actually deployed his troops into the monster-infested forest. His scouts find massive barrels of alcohol left behind in the abandoned camps. Horgus orders his men to charge forward. He thinks the victory is already secured, but the citizens of Caribia are fleeing. The peace is shattered. Jared stands on a ridge overlooking the broken defensive line. The enemy is exactly where he wanted them. Rakiz reports that the vanguard will arrive shortly. Jared orders them to move to the final position. Hayes runs up, begging to join the battle. She is a fully awakened healer now. She pleads to go with him. Jared refuses. The battlefield is too dangerous for a single mistake. He grips her hand tightly. He tells her his skills are too destructive, and he needs her to stay back and save the injured. He promises her that he will return safely. She cries but remembers the panic from the fake assassination prank. She accepts her role. She will stay behind to run the medical camp. Jared leaves her behind, walking toward the front lines. He puts his helmet on. The acting is over. It is time to slaughter the invaders. He locks the visor in place. Rakiz organizes the remaining 300 soldiers at the choke point. The military flag of Caribia flies high above the rocky stronghold. He looks down at his men. Most of them are simple peasants armed with pitchforks and axes. They stand shivering in the cold, holding whatever farming tools they could find. Rakiz apologizes for dragging them into this massacre due to military incompetence. Horgus rides his horse down the valley, leading 1,200 trained killers. Rakiz tells the peasants they are free to leave. He will hold the line alone. A veteran farmer steps forward. He refuses to run. The man declares that Jared saved their lives, and they will die protecting the land that feeds them. The peasants raise their tools and roar. They choose to fight. Rakiz smiles under his helm. The morale is unbreakable. He breathes out a cloud of cold air. He smiles. He is ready for this. Rakiz orders the actual swords and shields to be distributed. The enemy army appears on the horizon, moving fast. The hooves thunder against the frozen earth. Rakiz notices something completely unexpected. The banners flying above the cavalry do not belong to Mayarika. It is the yellow bird crest of Ronella. Lord Batman has joined the invasion. The horses kick up dust as they close the distance. Rakiz stares at the massive numbers. Batman leads the charge with his men. The mustached lord screams in triumph as he sights the Caribbean defenses. A flashback explains the betrayal. 1 month ago, Batman realized his hunters were dying out because they moved to Caribia. He visited Horgus, complaining about Jared monopolizing the wealth. Horgus Horgus reveals he received the exact same bribe from Jared. They both realize Jared is playing them, buying time to build his army. Horgus slams his fist on the table. He glares at Batman, demanding an alliance. Jared, acting innocent in the tavern, flashes on screen. Batman complains about losing hunters to the new territory. Horgus figures out Jared's entire plan. He tells Batman that Caribia only has 300 soldiers. Horgus holds the gold coin in his hand. He crushes it in a fit of pure rage. Akron was sent as a spy to confirm the weakness. Batman agrees to the alliance. Horgus vows to wage war. He sets the preparation time for exactly 1 month. They forge a united front to trample Jared. A firm handshake seals the deal. 3,000 soldiers united under one banner. But privately, they both plan to betray each other and seize the entire territory for themselves once Jared is dead. Back to the present. The massive allied army marches into the valley. The soldiers ready their spears, expecting an easy victory. Batman mocks the defense. He laughs at Jared for leaving the main road completely undefended. He calls Jared ignorant and declares his land finished. The Mayarica Knights approach the Caribbean shield wall. The Mayarica captain freezes in shock. He realizes Lord Jared isn't here. This entire defensive line is a decoy. Suddenly, a massive volley of arrows rains down from the cliffs above. The Mayarica captain screams as the trap snaps shut. The real army of Caribia holds the high ground, and the slaughter begins. The Majorican spy realizes his intel was a setup. He scrambles to warn his lord. A Caribbean knight steps out of the shadows and buries a blade into his chest. The spy hits the dirt. The element of surprise remains intact. The knight glares at the bleeding traitor. He confirms the leak is officially plugged. He brings a heavy boot down, snapping the communication device in half. From a high vantage point, Jared surveys the terrain with his war council. Rakiz points out the geographic advantage. The valley funnels the enemy army toward one specific location. A bald commander asks what happens if the invaders attempt to use the hidden forest byway. Jared already predicted that. He knows the enemy spy scouted the detour. He holds up a heavy magical disc, a custom-built explosive device. The massive fireball detonates, showing what awaits anyone who takes the side path. Debris rains down from the blast, turning the narrow pass into a meat grinder. Jared stands safely behind a shimmering blue barrier as the shockwave washes over them. Rakiz sweats in sheer disbelief. The destructive yield is astronomical for a single item. The enemy cavalry charges blind into the forest trap. A knight triggers the hidden tripwire. The forest becomes a mass grave. Jared's past life as a gamer gave him the knowledge to exploit class limits. But Akron is a genuine threat. His stats are balanced for a 4th-class mage. Akron strikes first, launching a brutal close-quarters offensive. He smashes through Jared's protective shield like it was made of glass. The barrier shatters into 1,000 glowing pieces. Jared grits his teeth and slides backward across the terrain. Akron laughs like a maniac. He thinks he figured out his opponent's magical trick. The enemy mage casts Dimension Door, opening a swirling vortex beneath them. Jared plummets toward the ground, gravity taking over. Akron assumes the falling lord will rely on the portal to save himself from the fatal drop. Jared glares back up. He refuses to play by the enemy's script. Akron dives toward the swirling gate, desperate to secure his escape route. He taunts Jared, claiming the victory. Jared answers with a massive blast of concentrated fire magic. Akron smiles, assuming a simple fire spell won't stop him. He realizes the choice is lethal either way. Block the attack or brace for the fall. The fiery meteor engulfs the space between them. Akron shields his face as he gets pushed backward by the concussive force. He sweats in midair, realizing his momentum just got hijacked. He falls directly through the portal and materializes above a pit of iron spikes. Jared hovers safely in the air, his cape flapping in the wind. Our boy explains the physics of the fight. By hitting Akron with an ice spell from below, he accelerated the mage's descent. He baited the arrogant spellcaster into diving into the trap first. Akron bleeds out on the spikes, his body mangled. Jared promises to deliver justice for every victim Mayarica ruined. The system alerts ring out. Jared gains 15 wisdom points for defeating a fellow mage. He steps next to Akron's broken glasses, unbothered by the kill. Down in the valley, the decoy force clashes with the Majorican vanguard. The enemy soldiers roar, confident in their overwhelming numbers. A Caribbean guard takes a spear to the stomach. Hayes rushes in to heal him. Rakiz commands the center to hold formation. The defensive center buckles under the sheer weight of the assault. The enemy captain orders his men to push through and slaughter everyone inside. He drives his spear forward with murderous intent. A heavy strike connects, knocking a Caribbean soldier off his feet. An old veteran with a scar steps onto the battlefield. He refuses to run. The veteran guards assemble, shields up. Jared looks just like his father, the great leader Barrett. The old elite guards unite with Jared's new army. A flashback reveals the previous lord's fatal mistake. He fired all the experienced guards to fund his luxurious lifestyle. The veterans left the territory in disgust, assuming Caribia was doomed. A heavy snowstorm blankets the empty training grounds. One of the old commanders wanders the frozen woods, resigned to his fate. He spots a heavily loaded wooden cart moving through the snow. Red goblins haul massive cargo toward the city borders. The black blacksmith explains the monsters are delivering iron for the military. The forge worker looks exhausted but triumphant. He strikes the anvil around the clock to forge the new metal into weapons. The veteran smiles, seeing the flames of passion relit in his home. The blacksmith warns the old man to keep the weapon surplus a secret. Jared's urban planning flashes on screen. The new roads and irrigation systems brought the city back to life. Seeing the territory reborn, the exiled veterans picked up their swords and returned to the ranks. They charge into the fray alongside the Wolfman, their loyalty absolute. The Majorcan soldiers hit the dirt. They lack the grit to fight a defending army that refuses to die. The enemy morale shatters. They drop their weapons and scatter in blind panic. Lord Horgus realizes the trap has crushed them. He curses the alliance. He screams in frustration as he spurs his horse to retreat. Jared stands atop the ridge, a solitary figure blocking the escape route. The enemy lords stare up at him in pure dread. Horgus draws his sword and charges up the slope. Jared floats midair, looking down at the fat crime lord with sheer disgust. He summons raw magical fire, unbothered by the incoming cavalry. The Majorcan guards surge forward to protect their leader. Jared's eyes glow blue. He warns them to back off. Horgus hits the ground, coughing from the impact. He grips his sword, realizing peace was never an option. Jared unleashes a brutal water blast right into the lord's face. Our MC stretches his hand forward, controlling the flow of the battlefield. The faces of the kidnapped slaves and ruined lives flash through his mind. He rains down magical strikes, cleaning the corruption from the earth. Horgus lies broken in the dirt, bleeding from his mouth. The crime lord smiles. He thinks he still holds a political trump card. He reminds Jared that killing a noble brings catastrophic consequences. Jared pulls a sharp dagger from his belt and steps closer. He offers to relieve the fat lord's anger permanently. Horgus chokes on his own blood. He threatens Jared with imperial retaliation. He grins, relying on the influence of his high-ranking nephew in the capital. He insists the Emperor's knights will ride north to avenge him. Jared pulls a thick green book from his coat. The game's lore manual. Horgus stares at it, completely confused. He repeats his threat about the knights. He clings to his nephew's reputation to save his life. Jared opens the book, ready to shatter the illusion. Horgus goes pale when Jared says the Count's name out loud. Jared explains he took extensive notes on everyone in the game. He laughs at the idea of the nephew caring about Horgus. He asks if the Emperor's knight would really travel this far for trash. He lists the massive distance and kingdoms separating them from the capital. The nephew's hatred for Horgus is revealed in a dramatic eye reflection. The red banner of Majorica lies trampled in the mud. Jared grins. The villain's life holds zero value to anyone. He asks for any last words while charging an ice spell. Horgus lunges with a dagger, screaming a curse. The ice magic erupts, freezing the crime lord solid mid-strike. A towering statue of frozen flesh remains. Jared taps the ice and watches the villain shatter into mist. The defense quest completes. Jared sits on the ground, exhausted but victorious. The remaining Majorcan soldiers raise their hands in total surrender. The prisoners are lined up and stripped of their gear. Jared disguises himself as a regular soldier to enter the city. They approach the massive wooden gates of Majorica. The green flag of the territory officially changes hands. Rakiz asks for the next set of orders. He points out Ronella has no defenses left after their army was demolished. Jared agrees. The numbers game heavily favors Caribia now. He commands the army to march straight into Ronella to finish the job. But before the march begins, an unexpected guest arrives in the reception room. General Capre of the Miseria territory stands waiting. He praises Jared for conquering Majorica and securing the trading routes. Jared stares him down, sensing a trap. Rakiz sweats at the sight of the high-level general. Capre demands a compensation fee to keep the peace between their lands. Jared's eyes glow red. He sees right through the extortion play. Capre planned to let the territories weaken each other so he could collect the spoils. Jared refuses the deal and charges his elemental magic. He fires ice, flame, and lightning arrows simultaneously. A massive fireball follows the initial volley. The explosion rocks the reception room. Capre emerges from the smoke, shielding his face. He takes a sharp hit to the side, drawing blood. Jared scoffs at the general's lack of magical resistance. Capre laughs nervously, realizing he pushed his luck too far. Jared warns him that he has to cross Miseria to reach the central continent anyway. He threatens to kill Capre if he gets in the way. Capre's stat card is revealed. Night falls over the Majorica mansion. Isabel drinks wine on the balcony. Chloe steps out to get some fresh air. Isabel asks if the war is bothering her. Chloe admits she feels useless just standing by while the territory was under attack. She feels like she should be helping defend Caribia. Isabel tells her Jared is preparing for something much bigger than a border skirmish. She senses Jared is looking far into the future. A flashback shows Jared talking to Chloe during her training. He asks why a proud gray elf would labor in human lands instead of hiding in the forest. He brings up the black orcs who killed her father. Chloe's eyes go wide. That lore was a heavily guarded secret. Isabel tells Chloe to keep watching him. They have plenty of time to figure him out. Isabel suddenly gets a drunk, dizzy look on her face. Chloe realizes the demon is acting weird again. Isabel spurs sprints off shouting for teacher while clutching the wine bottle. Chloe sighs at the absurd rumor-inducing behavior. A dark alleyway in Mayarika is shown. Prua smashes a bottle, furious that Horgus died and lost the war. He orders his men to grab the valuables and abandon the territory. One of the masked thugs yells a warning. Prua closes his eyes, annoyed by the interruption. Jared stands with Rakiz and the guards, greeting the crime lord. He asks Prua where he's rushing off to. Prua pulls out his pocket watch artifact. He refuses to stick around and chat. Jared casts a binding spell, shooting blue rings of magic. Prua stands surrounded by the glowing magical strikes. He groans, hating the hassle. He activates the space warping clock. The blue magical rings slow to an absolute crawl in midair. Rakiz panics, wondering if the crime boss is also a hidden mage. Jared explains the artifact slows magic within 20 meters. He notes it only works on spells below the 5th class. Jared walks straight into the 20-meter active zone. Prua scoffs at a spellcaster trying to fight close up. Jared declares it is the end for the Detrahair cartel leader. Prua offers to triple the bribes he used to pay Horgus. Rakiz draws his sword, enraged by the offer. Jared refuses, knowing the cartel will ruin the northern continent if left alive. He remembers the lore where Prua becomes the Demon King's advisor. Prua draws his anti-magic sword, ready to kill. Jared rolls up his sleeves. He accepts the physical challenge. He activates the 5th option of Deluxe Bracelet. Dark magic wraps around his wrist, doubling his strength against higher-level enemies. Prua dashes across the alley, his blade sparking. Jared casts Nightmare Magic, flooding the street with purple energy. Prua swings wide. He triggers his unique skill, Recklessness Stage 1. His arm muscles bulge. He lunges at Jared in a blur. A heavy Caribbean knight steps in with a shield. Prua brings the sword down on the iron defense. The strike cracks the heavy shield in half. Jared hits Prua with a blinding flash of light magic. Prua shields his eyes and leaps onto the rooftops. He realizes Jared casts spells abnormally fast. The masked thugs watch in awe as the young lord fights like a seasoned veteran. Prua claps his hands, impressed by the combat style. Jared points out Prua relies entirely on his gear. He calls out the specific name of Prua's weapon, the 99th failed longsword. Prua snarls, irritated that his secrets are exposed. He hits stage 2 and dashes again. Jared hurls a massive wave of fire. Prua slices straight through the flames with the anti-magic blade. He bounces between the alley walls like a pinball. Jared tracks him, firing precision blasts. Prua vaults off a falling chunk of stone. He aims a diving strike straight at Jared. Jared dashes backward to keep his distance. The blade slices the stone street apart. Jared blinks out of the way just in time. Jared mocks the slow attack. He charges a combination of lightning and nightmare magic. A massive purple lightning bolt strikes the alley from the sky. Prua falls to his knees, smoking and injured. Jared sits on a nearby roof, telling the swordsman to give up. He explains Prua's sword strokes are strong but predictable. A diagram shows the safe zone outside Prua's strike range. Prua activates stage 3, glowing with pink energy. He laughs maniacally, asking who will win now. Jared guarantees his own victory with absolute certainty. Prua hits stage 4 and swings with earth-shattering force. The blade comes down. Jared doesn't move. Prua realizes something is terribly wrong. Jared grins, having baited the crime lord perfectly. The lore explains Prua's weakness compared to Del-Luke. Jared targeted the recklessness ability specifically. The ability raises physical stats but drains life force rapidly. Prua's eyes widen as he realizes he burnt himself out. Jared uses space magic to close the gap instantly and stabs Prua with his own blade. Prua coughs up blood, his body failing from the stat boost. Jared stands over him, lecturing him on keeping a cool head. He holds up a bag of the cartel's own refined drugs. He shoves the entire bag straight into Prua's mouth. The powder flies everywhere. A lethal dose of his own poison. The crime lord collapses. Jared declares the execution complete. The system triggers quest completion. Rakiz reports the remaining thugs are subdued. Jared orders a complete purge of all criminals in the territory before dawn. The chain thugs are marched away. Mayarika is under new management. Rakiz looks at Jared with a newfound sense of awe. He sees a leader who uses mysterious wisdom to overcome impossible odds. But this time, Jared showed ruthless, absolute power. Jared stands bathed in the morning light, projecting the aura of a rising emperor. The system alert triggers. Rakiz's loyalty maxes out. The chief guard achieves his first awakening. The territory gains a massive power boost. Jared groans as he sits under mountains of paperwork in the study. He needs to raid tombs and find an expert to mine Chaldea. Chaldea is a future or stronger than iron. Securing it will give Caribia ultimate military power. He slumps over the desk, overwhelmed by the administrative mess Horgus left behind. Hayes tries to help sort the documents. Jared holds a talent hunt. He watches the first contestant, Tonio. He playfully holds up a pass sign while eating popcorn, but lore reveals Tonio gets executed. He rejects Katie next for future exile. The final contestant is Marklon. Jared sighs and decides to settle for him, but Rakiz reports Marklon already fled the city in terror. Jared stands frozen in a gray void of disappointment. He laments that his cheat knowledge can't find a single talent. System alerts warn that the labor labor and commerce departments are collapsing. Rakiz rides up on a horse, looking stressed. He reports a major issue at Devani village. The newly assigned leader isn't doing any work. He's drinking and drawing obscene pictures all day. Rakiz is enraged. They arrive at the small village of Devani. Jared kicks the door open. He demands the village head Julian come out immediately. Rakiz shouts into the dusty room. A young guard blushes violently. The walls are covered in censored, obscene drawings. Rakiz yells at them to shut up. A long-haired man holding a metal mug asks who is there. Jared's mind eye reveals the man is the ultimate S-rank sage of management. Julian casually confirms his identity. His stat card shows his massive administrative synergy. Rakiz prepares to attack him, but Jared holds a hand up. Jared asks why he is doing nothing for the village. Julian claims the work is too trivial for him to bother with. He takes a sip of his drink, completely unbothered by the threat. Rakiz draws his sword. Jared sits on the floor calmly. Jared asks if the work really isn't fitting for him. He challenges Julian to prove his skills. Julian lowers his mug, sensing a real challenge. He smiles and agrees to show them what he can do. Julian orders a servant to bring all the past documents. He asks Jared to help take the pictures down carefully. Jared complies, fetching the drawings while Julian works. Julian solves a livestock issue with a single sentence about feeding schedules. He restructures the milling wages instantly, making the workers happy. He solves the beekeeping problem by explaining hive migration patterns. He uncovers an embezzlement scheme from the harvest reports. Rakiz is stunned. Jared smiles. The guy cleared all pending issues in half a day. The two sit across from each other at a long table. Jared acknowledges Julian's insane confidence is justified. Julian apologizes for procrastinating on the trivial work. He realizes Jared baited him into showing off his true talent. Jared extends a hand and asks one final question. He asks what Julian's ultimate dream is. Julian thinks a commoner isn't allowed to have big dreams. He looks serious for the first time. Jared declares his dream is to become the hero of the Nas continent. Julian stares, realizing Jared isn't joking. He sees the sheer scale of the Lord's ambition. He pours 2 glasses of dark liquor. He says a vassal's failure is the fault of the Lord looking down on them. He promises to build a conglomerate of territories within the year. They clink glasses. Jared smiles, securing his perfect administrator. Julian grins. He pledges his full respect to the Lord. Rakiz listens in, realizing the territory will be fine. Jared appoints Julian as the executive head of Mayarika's internal affairs. The system displays a memory of Mia and Mary. Caribia and Mayarika flourish under the new management. Hayes sweeps the floor, looking gloomy. The veterans praise Julian's flawless execution of his duties. Rakiz notes how crazy it is to trust one vassal with an entire territory. They prepare to leave for Mayarika to help with the transition. The old veteran asks if Hayes will go greet the Lord. Hayes puts on a bright, fake smile to hide her insecurities. Mayarika's grand architecture is shown. Jared reviews documents at his desk. Julian is working tirelessly. A knock echoes on the heavy wooden door. Hayes enters with a tea set, smiling happily. She explains the Carlicas flower tea is good for dieting. Julian offers Jared a shoulder massage. Jared declines, saying he's fine. Julian advises him to rest so he doesn't lose focus. Julian bows and leaves to meet the other vassals. The older vassals wait outside. They were worried about a young manager, but they are deeply impressed by Julian's skill. Jared offers Hayes the extra teacup. She panics, waving her hands. A maid shouldn't drink with a lord. Jared smiles and reminds her there are no strict rules when they are alone. Hayes agrees, still nervous. She pours the hot tea. They sip together. Jared suddenly asks her to give up being a maid. Hayes spits her tea in shock. She cries, asking if she's a failure of a maid. She assumes he figured out she used cleaning magic to cheat on her chores. Jared explains he knows she did it to practice magic. A flashback of her healing hands glows green. He tells her she's a healer now and needs to be promoted. Hayes refuses. She wants to keep taking care of him. Jared playfully grabs her hair, annoyed she won't follow orders. He places a green pendant on the table. He warns her the future holds death and despair. The pendant floats above the table. He needs her resurrection magic. He explains the artifact belonged to a criminal. It is the Tears of Mahart 3. It boosts stats but has a secret purpose. It is the key to the ancient catacombs under Mayarika. He asks her to come outside. Hayes looks confused but agrees. A small town in Lent use. A courier knocks on a door. The traveler Beltan receives a heavy package. He sits down and reads the letter. He flips the gold coin, intrigued by the sender's bold bribe. The disguise drops. It is the 9th class Grand Mage Belhard. He realizes the sender knows how to progress to the 5th class. He reads the signature, Jared. His eyes go wide in shock. He remembers Jared as Barrett's useless, fat son. Belhard summons blue magical fire. He decides he has to see this for himself. Jared and Hayes walk down a dark forest path. Hayes is creeped out. Jared notes there are no villains around. He finds the lack of monsters highly suspicious. The game forum flashes. Players spent ages trying to find the catacombs. A developer's selfie gave it away. The monitor reflection showed a massive tree root. Jared finds the exact spot. The sand shifts beneath their feet. Hayes shrieks and grabs Jared Jared's cloak. A colossal ethereal face emerges from the roots. Mahart demands to know who enters his catacombs. Jared glares back at the spirit. Mahart notes Jared is a cursed soul not belonging to this world. The spirit towers over them. Jared stands his ground. Mahart orders them to disperse, warning the world will end if the curses resonate. Jared wonders if Mahart is talking to the entity hiding inside his body. He summons 4 swirling orbs of wind magic. He smiles and decides to force his way in. He unleashes the wind blades, slicing the massive roots apart. The ancient wood splinters violently. A dark cavern opens up in the earth. Jared points to the entrance. Violence is always an option. They walk into the pitch-black tunnel. Jared sits at his desk, drawing a massive map of the labyrinth. Hayes is amazed at his cartography talent. He claims he learned it from his father. He smiles at her praise. Hayes beams happily. In the kitchen, the staff discusses Mary's upcoming arrival. Hayes eagerly offers to cook for Jared. She sprints out of the room, determined to prove she is still useful. A montage of the labyrinth. Jared and Hayes explored the safe, unlit areas. The lore details the mirror dungeon raid. Guilds rushed it for artifacts, but the final boss, a massive armored giant, stopped everyone. The top players banded together to clear it. They were completely annihilated by the boss's halberd. Jared knows clearing it with a small team is a massive risk. He stares at the map and the pendant key. He stands up to finish his preparations. Hayes spies on him, noticing his suspicious behavior. He claims to be cleaning, but he's casting magic. He stockpiles dozens of holy attribute weapons. He claims to be studying while painting on a canvas. Hayes is incredibly confused by all the secrecy. Mia, disguised as a boy, asks if he needs help selling drawings. Jared hands over Julian's obscene art. Mia blushes bright red at the dirty pictures. He agrees to find a sketchy buyer. Hayes asks why he's drawing those things. Jared suspects Julian uses a bug artifact to avoid sleeping. A guard announces a carriage from Caribia has arrived. Hayes rushes up, asking if he called for people. Jared tightens his gauntlets, readying for battle. Hayes realizes he's heading back to the ruins. He tells her she'd be dead weight in a dangerous place like this. Hayes looks down, devastated. Jared keeps a stoic face. He grips his cloak. If he dies here, there are no respawns. He needs the reward. He walks down the grand stairs to meet the best fighters he knows. Isabel yells at him for being late. Chloe, Ella, and Isabel stand ready. The elite raid team is assembled. They arrive at the shattered tree roots. Jared tells them they just need to follow his map. Chloe looks extremely nervous. Ella complains about the lack of light, understanding why Isabel and Rakiza's equivalent are here. She questions why Chloe is here. Jared smiles and says she's the most important person. They walk down the massive stone corridor. Ella assumes Jared wants the dark artifacts. He confirms he's only interested in the loot. Ella smiles, glad they aren't fighting for some righteous cause. She notes Chloe is extremely faithful to the light. A bright light appears at the end of the tunnel. Jared explains the floor plan. They have to clear multiple chambers in order. They stand before massive iron doors guarded by lion statues. Hundreds of featureless clay soldiers stand in perfect formation. Jared tells Isabel to execute the stealth strategy. Isabel scatters black powder, summoning the light-absorbing blackbuddy material. A clay soldier turns its blank face. The team stands completely still as the golem patrol walks past. Jared fires a rapid wind spell to clear a path. The wind blades slice the clay soldiers apart. Isabel dashes in and slices another one down silently. Purple mana stones drop from the broken golems. Ella asks why the golems ignored Jared and targeted her. Jared explains they prioritize dark mages and sorcerers. He picks up the stones. It's time for the disguises. The massive iron doors open. The team walks in wearing hollowed-out clay heads. They look absurd. The chamber is filled with thousands of identical clay warriors. Ella is stunned by the sheer size of the underground army. She asks if the dumb disguise will actually work. They march alongside the silent horde. Jared calculates there are over 2,500 warriors here. The previous raid teams tried to fight through and got exhausted. Because their team is small, they don't look suspicious. Chloe's cloaking magic combined with the masks makes them invisible to the security grid. Ella gestures to a golem, completely ignores them. Chloe hates the heavy curse energy radiating from the statues. Jared explains the golems have terrible eyesight and rely on magical detection. Ella laughs at the absurd situation. Jared warns them there is a forced combat chamber coming up. A heavy click echoes in the room. A golem bumps into Ella, staring at her blankly. Isabel gives her a thumbs up. They slowly back away. They successfully slip past the patrol. A massive shadow looms over them. A colossal mutant clay figure stands in the way. Chloe notes it feels different from normal undead. Jared explains they are born of non-black magic curses. Mahart cursed his subjects to attain eternal life. They lost their human forms and melted into clay figures. Ella glares up, deciding Mahart is a terrible king. Jared warns the mutant golems retain parts of their original minds. The giant golem turns its hollow skull. A single blood-red eye opens. It sees through the disguise instantly. The giant leaps into the air, raising both massive stone fists. It smashes the ground, shattering the floor tiles. It leaps again, completely ignoring the smaller golems. Ella draws her sword, sword, ready to fight. The mutant lands heavily. The stealth phase is over. The red eye locks onto Jared. It charges, swiping a massive hand that sends regular golems flying. Ella yells for everyone to scatter. She dashes in, swinging her sword with extreme force. Jared casts a massive pillar of green lightning directly down onto the giant. The blast obliterates the stone floor. The smoke clears. The giant stands perfectly unharmed. It is immune to magic. Jared sweats. Even electricity didn't slow it down. The giant winds up for a brutal punch. Ella braces herself. Jared raises his hand and shouts the passcode, "Hail my heart." The giant freezes mid-swing. Its massive fist hovers inches from Jared. It slowly backs away. Ella exhales in shock, asking what magic that was. Jared explains it is a hard-coded passcode. He reveals that specific giant is an invincible variant. There's only a 0.1% chance of it spawning. They got extremely unlucky. Ella pulls her mask off, furious that an unkillable enemy exists. Jared explains invincible mobs always have hard limits built into their programming. He tells them to take the masks off. The disguise is useless now. Isabel takes hers off, glad Jared remembered the code. Jared smiles nervously, claiming he learned it through experimentation. The team walks through the massive archway, leaving the frozen army behind as they head deeper into the dungeon. A booming voice echoes through the grand hall, welcoming the intruders to their execution. The statues holding the massive stone bowl tremble beneath the weight of the sanctuary. The chief priest of Mahart stands before them, wearing two masked heads that track their every movement. Jared stays calm, directing his vanguards to take the front line. The priest raises a hand, buffing the strength and agility of the stone soldiers filling the room. Ella swings her heavy blade, unbothered by the incoming mob of cursed clay. Isabel screams in pure panic as the entire horde bypasses the tanks and swarms her instead. A grotesque pillar of melting faces rises from the floor to crush the invaders. Chloe dashes forward, a blur of silver hair and drawn steel. She slashes through the priest's defenses, carving deep red lines across his chest. The boss screams in pain, summoning a massive stone hand to crush the elf. The giant fist smashes into the floor tiles. Ella watches the chaos, annoyed by the sheer stench of dark magic polluting the room. She decides to taunt the priest, asking why he treats his own subjects like disposable meat shields. He fires heavy wooden spikes, declaring that slaves are nothing but tools for his highness. Ella smirks and deflects the strike. The priest freezes, caught off guard. Ella delivers the verbal killing blow, pointing out that the priest is just a rotting puppet himself. The sun mask stammers in doubt, while the moon mask screams at him to ignore the devil's lies. The stone floor cracks under the building pressure. The priest lunges at Ella, furious at the blasphemy. Chloe waits for the perfect opening and drops from the ceiling to slice the monster apart. The priest hits the floor, his composure shattered by a few simple words. Chloe executes the final strike without hesitation. Ella adjusts her sunglasses, praising Jared's tactical genius. He used simple insults to break the boss's mental guard and secure an easy victory. Jared kicks a fallen golem head. Isabel steps on the stone face, demanding it serve her instead. The cursed spirit immediately complies. Jared, Ella, and Chloe stare at the dead priest. Jared's knowledge of the tomb is almost too accurate. Ella hums a happy tune, thrilled with the massive payout. She hauls a giant sack of magic stones over her shoulder, treating the legendary dungeon like a casual loot farm. Jared examines the grand doors leading to the final chamber. He outlines a simple flanking strategy. Isabel warns him that the monster behind this gate single-handed crushed top-tier guilds in the past. The heavy iron doors slowly grind open. A massive armored giant kneels in the center of the vast empty room. Gold Hawk, the guardian, warns them not to disturb his master's slumber. Isabel shivers as the sheer scale of the monster's aura washes over them. A red eye opens beneath the helmet. The guardian senses the chief priest's death. The sun mask held by Chloe begins to glow with unstable energy. The priest's severed head panics. The mask explodes in a geyser of blood, splashing across the pristine floor. Gold Hawk raises his massive halberd, vowing to punish the betrayal. Jared acts fast, throwing a decoy fireball to draw the guardian's attention. The flames detonate against the heavy armor. The giant steps through the smoke, completely unharmed and furious. Jared warns his team to stay back. The real fight starts now. He casts nightmare magic mixed with a barrage of magic missiles. Purple energy streaks across the room like a localized meteor shower. The strikes hammer against the guardian's chestplate. Gold Hawk pushes right through the onslaught. He swings his massive weapon, aiming to cleave Jared in two. The blade hits the ground, causing a massive shockwave. Jared dodges backward using blink, evading the lethal impact. The giant winds up for a second strike, tearing the floor apart. Jared teleports again, staying just out of range. He calculates the threat. A single graze from that weapon means instant death. The giant spins around, desperate to crush the agile human. Jared smiles. Chloe strikes from behind while the boss is distracted. The giant's eye pulses with ancient hatred. He demands the vermin die. Chloe ducks backward, avoiding the counterattack. Gold Hawk glares at the retreating elf. His vision suddenly blurs. Isabel casts a heavy debuff from the sidelines. The guardian realizes the young mage orchestrated a flawless tactical assault. Jared's fire magic forced him into a blind spot right from the start. The boss maps out the threat, recognizing the precision of their limited numbers. Black energy swirls around the giant's halberd. He lashes out with dark tendrils, aiming to impale the entire group. Chloe leaps over the strike, driving her sword straight into the armor joints. The giant roars and swings wide to shake her off. A point-blank fireball engulfs the guardian's helmet. Gold Hawk staggers backward, the stone armor beginning to crack. He realizes his rotting vessel cannot sustain this level of damage for much longer. He decides to break their formation by taking out the human leader. The giant dashes forward, kicking up clouds of dust. He targets Jared with zero hesitation. Jared casts haste, boosting his speed to maximum. The massive blade comes down with earth-shattering force. The impact creates a crater where the boy just stood. Gold Hawk thinks he secured the kill, but it is just an illusion. The real Jared stands safely on the sidelines, having baited the attack with a mirror image. Ella watches the chaos, refusing to step in. If she joined the fray, the victory would have been instantaneous. But her warrior instincts told her to stay out of it. She watches Jared and Chloe grow at a terrifying rate under the pressure of life and death. The Guardian drops his weapon. He admits fighting in this weak vessel is pointless. He warns Jared that they will meet again on the battlefield. The massive armor crumbles into dust, leaving the room silent. Isabel inspects the loot. A strange, quilted shirt drops from the remains. She tries to throw the cursed item away, but Jared dives for it. He holds the armor up, grinning like a madman. He explains it is Rold's mirror armor, a legendary item that repels projectiles. The fabric is thinner than cotton, making it the perfect hidden defense. He stares at the prize, thrilled to secure such an overpowered drop. He puts the armor on under his regular clothes, ready for the next phase. He tells the team to wait behind while he faces the true final boss alone. Isabel is shocked. She knows Mahar tosses mind-destroying curses like candy. Jared holds up Saint Gracia's ring. It neutralizes all mental debuffs on contact. He points to a crack in the wall, instructing Isabel to absorb the leaking demonic energy during the fight. He warns her the energy acts like a toxin, but consuming it will boost her power. Isabel smiles confidently. She can handle a little dark magic. Jared tasks Chloe with guarding the entrance against any remaining clay figures. Ella points to herself, asking what her crucial role is. Jared tells her to guard the magic stones. Ella sits on the sack, feeling insulted. Jared steps through the final lion gates into the true catacombs. A lone stone coffin sits in the center of the vast, empty chamber. Jared taps his magic wand, charging it with raw mana to awaken the sleeper. The stone lid slides back. Bright green light floods the room. Tyrant Mahart rises, the fallen emperor of a forgotten age. The glowing green eyes scan the room, confused by the surroundings. Mahart notices strange blue circles drawn all over his sacred floor. The ground is covered in crude, childish scribbles masking deadly magic traps. Jared smirks, tired of the dramatic entrance. Mahart demands to know why a mortal disturbs his slumber. Jared calls out the tyrant's delusion. Mahart enslaved his own people in pursuit of immortality. He buried them in mass graves and left them to rot in the dark. The tyrant glares, insisting that dying for him was a blessing. Jared laughs at the coward hiding from death by mimicking eternal life. Mahart extends a hand, furious at the sheer disrespect. He casts a mental affliction spell, but Gracia's ring shatters the magic on impact. The tyrant summons a massive spectral skull to brand Jared as a sinner. The roaring spirit charges across the room, tracking its target. Jared knows dodging is impossible. The curse follows until it lands. The skull opens its jaws to consume him. Jared casts Blink, teleporting straight into one of his blue circles. The spirit crashes into the trap and seals itself inside the drawing. Jared stands behind a roaring wall of green fire. Mahart offers the boy a deal: immortality and strength in exchange for servitude. Jared laughs. He has no desire to become a bald, glowing zombie. Mahart snaps. The negotiation is over. Raw green lightning crackles across his massive clay body. He hurls spheres of concentrated dark energy. Jared dives out of the way as the stone floor erupts. He counters with a massive surge of fire. The flames engulf Mahart's head in a bright explosion. A violent tornado of wind magic follows, tearing through the boss's defenses. Mahart regenerates instantly, ready to return the favor. Jared expected this. The boss heals just like he did in the game. It becomes a brutal battle of attrition. Stamina versus mana. Mahart summons dozens of glowing green spears to rain down on the human. Jared dodges midair, using his space warping clock to slow the projectiles. Mahart notices the powerful artifacts protecting the boy. Massive green vines burst from the ground to entangle Jared. Jared creates a magical shield to block the razor-sharp thorns. The catacombs shake as the two unleash pure destruction on each other. Explosions tear the ancient tomb apart. Jared reaches his physical limits, dodging by pure instinct. His mana is nearly drained, but he refuses to stop fighting. Mahart launches a brutal physical strike to end it. The tyrant's green eyes narrow as he calculates his victory. He watches the human struggle, feeling confident that the end is near. But Jared's exhaustion is a calculated act. He forces the boss to push harder, draining the monster's reserves. Mahart almost bought the desperate performance. The tyrant gets a vision glitch as his energy wavers. He drops to one knee, feeling his life force plummet. He looks down at the strange blue circles beneath his feet. He realizes the childish drawings are actually complex sealing magic. Mahart sits trapped in the center of the massive glowing array. Dark energy bursts from the floor, chaining his legs to the stone. A massive green explosion rocks the chamber, utilizing Mahart's own power against him. Jared grins. The trap worked flawlessly. Mahart summons a purple halo of energy, preparing to break free. Jared stands tall, unfazed by the counterattack. The tyrant lunges forward, furious at the underhanded trick. Jared uses Blink to launch himself into the air, summoning the Soul Chaser chain. He slams the glowing chain down, anchoring the boss to the floor. Jared hits the ground hard, gasping for breath as the fight turns brutal. Mahart summons a massive screaming skull made of pure purple energy. Jared raises his arms, pouring his remaining mana into a shield. The impact shatters the barrier into a million pieces. Jared rolls across the stone, his armor smoking from the blast. The tyrant steps forward, towering over his fallen prey. He kicks Jared into the air with devastating force. Jared coughs, his vision blurring from the pain. Mahart grabs the boy by the throat and lifts him off the ground. He squeezes tight, choking the life out of the arrogant mage. Jared bleeds, struggling to break the iron grip. A system warning flashes red. His HP drops to a critical 10%. Jared forces his hand up, a yellow magic circle glowing on his palm. He grabs Mahart's thick wrist, annoyed by the tyrant's lecture. Mahart declares that the cunning tricks have come to an end. Jared's fist trembles with remaining strength. Mahart punches him square in the face. Jared barely flinches. The strike lacked real power. The boss prepares a lethal green blast to finish the execution. Jared flashes a wicked smile. He pulls a hidden dagger and stabs the tyrant right in the eye. Mahart pulls the blade out, reminding the boy his body is made of regenerating sand. Jared summons a dozen holy swords, launching them straight into the giant's back. He grips his main blade, blood dripping from his chin. He applies a powerful holy attribute cleansing spell to the weapon. The swords stuck in Mahart's body begin to glow with divine light. Mahart mocks the low-class magic, confident it won't hurt him. Jared isn't trying to cleanse the boss. He is purging the demonic energy fueling him. He drives the glowing blade deep into Mahart's skull. The tyrant panics as his core energy burns away. He calls out for his clay army to protect him. Outside the chamber, Chloe drops from the ceiling to intercept the horde. The golems march forward, spears raised. She slices through the vanguard, holding the line alone. She moves like a phantom, executing her orders to keep the enemies away. Mahart realizes his connection to his soldiers is severed. Jared smirks. His team lock down the outside perfectly. The tyrant screams, summoning a massive black hole to consume the boy. He casts a massive green vortex to revive the dead. He refuses to fall. He still intends to ravage the world. His green energy spirals out of control, desperate for survival. Jared grips his sword tight, preparing the final strike. The boy stares down the ancient king without an ounce of fear. He declares his own dream to unite the entire continent. A colossal burst of green magic erupts, blinding the room. The explosion rocks the foundations of the catacombs. Isabel bursts through the grand doors, screaming Jared's name. The dust settles over the ruined battlefield. Jared lies motionless on the stone altar. Mahart stands above him, laughing as the immortal victor. But the tyrant's smile fades. His clay body begins to melt into gray sludge. His legs disintegrate. The holy magic did its job. Rocks fall from the ceiling as the tomb begins to collapse. Isabel rushes to her fallen lord. Jared defeated the legendary emperor of the Forgotten Age. He opens his eyes and flashes a massive, exhausted smile. The team looks up at the massive crater open to the sky above. Isabel shakes him, threatening to curse him herself if he dares to die. Jared groans, his body broken but his spirit intact. He points a shaking finger, demanding she grab the legendary grimoire from the secret room. Isabel sighs, calling him a greedy bastard to the very end. Weeks pass. June 1st, the Mayarika territory returns to peace. Jared sits in his new office, frustrated that he forgot to ask Mahart about his true identity. Julian notices his lord's distress and asks if something is wrong. The manager reports massive success. Crime rates dropped by 90%. The new magic stone lamps are securing the borders perfectly. Citizens walk the streets at night without fear. Julian hands over the documents, noting the dark burn scar lingering on Jared's arm. Jared waves it off as a badge of victory from the tomb raid. He changes the subject, asking Aki about his bizarre outfit. Aki poses in a massive white tunic, claiming it is the latest royal fashion from the capital. Jared stares at the ridiculous clothes, completely unamused. The boy looks absolutely ridiculous. Jared asks about the confiscated contraband he ordered Aki to sell. Aki casually admits he sold the entire stash. He reveals the buyer was Lord Abanaba, the Red Goblin King. The Goblin King bought the entire inventory with glowing eyes. Jared covers his face. He just corrupted an entire monster tribe. A guard enters with an official trade request from the Cinders Kingdom military. They want a long-term contract to buy all the mines Caribia produces. Caribia holds a strict monopoly on the continent's most valuable resources. Jared expects political pressure. The Cinders Kingdom is getting too interested. He connects the dots. The timing is suspicious. He remembers the game game lore. King Dactyr IX will die soon. His death triggers the prince's uprising, a brutal civil war. The second prince, Putilin, will ultimately seize the blood-stained throne. Putilin is a fanatic follower of the Umber Church, a cult of dark mages. His reign turns the nation into an evil empire that triggers a holy war. The entire continent will burn under his rule. Jared decides to stay neutral. Interfering now is too risky. Hayes kicks the office door open, panting for breath. She brings urgent news that interrupts the planning session. The king of the Cinder's kingdom has sent a handwritten greeting, and the fourth prince himself is delivering it personally. The royal carriage rides through the heavy gates of Caribia. Jared and Julian wait in the reception hall, bracing for the political storm. Prince Isel introduces himself with a polite, measured smile. His hidden stats show immense leadership and theological knowledge. Jared bows low, playing the role of a humble vassal perfectly. Isel hands over the sealed invitation to the king's birthday banquet. Jared accepts it, knowing the king would never invite a minor lord without an ulterior motive. He figures it is too early to participate in the kingdom's dangerous affairs. Isel admits he requested the invitation because he wanted to meet Jared in person. The prince locks eyes with him, testing the waters. Jared plays dumb, claiming he doesn't know how to react to such high praise. Isel invites Jared to the palace for drinks to discuss the future. Jared declines, reminding the prince that he is an independent lord, not a subject. Isel's friendly expression hardens for a fraction of a second. The prince turns and walks away, accepting the rejection. He warns Jared not to treat the king's letter as an insult. Jared promises to attend the banquet. The polite act drops the second the door closes. Isel is incredibly sharp. Jared realizes the fourth prince has all the qualifications to be a true king. But Jared can't look like he's trying to get on the prince's good side. He decides to attend the party just to show the world that Caribia is not weak. Inside the Cinder's palace, an old retainer kneels before Prince Putilin. Putilin questions the man about his past service in Caribia. The old man confirms he worked under the previous viscount. Putilin grins in the dark. He wants every detail about Jared's life. Jared prepares his inventory. He checks the stats of Lappel's potion. He also reviews a blueprint for magical video recording stones. He secures an ancient grimoire that sacrifices mana for health regeneration. The day of the banquet arrives. Mia runs down the grand halls of the Mayarica Palace. She finds Julian and asks to see the Lord. Julian stops her gently. He explains that Jared left for the capital 2 days ago. The royal carriage rides along the mountain roads. Hayes is thrilled to travel with Jared and Aki again. She jokes about the time Aki got kidnapped. The merchant begs her to drop the dark history. Jared smiles, grateful for the loyal team he built. Aki blushes, swearing his absolute devotion to the Lord. The massive palace of the Cinder's kingdom comes into view over the horizon. The ballroom is packed with aristocrats, high-ranking officials, and flowing wine. Jared approaches the throne and bows before the aging King Dactyr. The herald announces Viscount Jared of Caribia to the entire hall. The nobles whisper. They all know the rumors about the young conqueror. Jared stands tall in his dark green suit, commanding absolute presence. The aristocrats gossip about his military exploding from 200 to 5,000 soldiers. They question how a barren wasteland became a fortress overnight. They know he holds the monopoly on medicine, mines, and magic stones. He is a walking gold mine. The local lords plot to greet him to earn favor with the royal family. The king dismisses Jared, offering empty pleasantries. Jared nods. He has zero interest in making small talk with a dying monarch. A noble calls his name. The local lords flock to Jared, showering him with fake praise. One noble waves his arms, desperate to secure an arranged marriage with the young lord. Jared glares, emitting a terrifying aura to push the crowds away. He spots the first prince, Ian, coughing violently into a handkerchief. Ian's rare disease guarantees he will never take the throne. He is out of the race. Across the room, the third prince, Jess, laughs loudly with his supporters. Jess holds the backing of the mainstream nobles but lacks military might. The political divide is obvious. Jess's faction is ready to go to war with Putilin's side. Prince Isel's supporters are too weak to matter in the upcoming clash. Isel approaches Jared from behind. Before they can speak, Prince Putilin intercepts them. Putilin towers over the group, radiating ambition and danger. He steps right between Jared and Isel, cutting his younger brother off entirely. General Capri stands right beside the prince. Jared smirks at the familiar face. Putilin admits he used Isel's invitation as an excuse to meet the famous lord. Isel glares at his older brother. The tension is razor sharp. Jared plays the humble noble, claiming he doesn't know how to respond to the attention. Putilin calls his bluff. He knows Jared annexed Mayarica while pretending to be weak. Jared forces an awkward laugh, blaming his success on pure luck. Putilin steps close, staring the boy down. He sees right through the act. He knows Jared is incredibly ambitious. He claps a heavy hand on Jared's shoulder, securing his dominance in front of the crowd. The second prince walks away, leaving a clear threat hanging in the air. Prince Jess slides in next, laughing at his brother's dramatic exit. Jared sighs internally. These royals are exhausting to deal with. Jess tries a different tactic. He brags about his connections to the military. He threatens to manipulate supply rates to squeeze Caribia's profit. profits. Jared smiles and shuts him down. Caribia sets its own prices and ignores external pressure. Jess forces a laugh, trying to play off the public rejection. Jared bows mockingly. He refuses to be treated like a chess piece in their war. Jess complains that Jared is showing too much interest in a rival faction. The prince loses his temper, furious at the defiance. He accuses Jared of dismissing him just because he isn't the favored brother. Jess grits his teeth, humiliated in front of his retainers. He grabs Jared by the collar, screaming in his face. Pudilin watches the scene unfold from across the room, analyzing the chaos. Jared remains calm. He just stares at the furious prince. Back at the manor, Jared reviews Lappel's potion. It grants immense experience but causes terrible nausea. He pairs it with a blueprint for a magical video recorder. He checks the ancient grimoire he looted. He also acquired a master craftsman's tool capable of carving permanent magic circles. The Caribia estate stands peaceful in the afternoon sun. Inside his room, Jared forces raw magic through his body. He tests a powerful charm spell, grinning as the pink energy swirls around his fingers. He explains the spell breaks down mental boundaries, causing a fatal lapse in judgment. He realizes his resistance to curses dropped after absorbing Mahart's demonic energy. Hayes opens the door and freezes. Her master is covered in pink light, panting heavy. She blushes bright red, completely misreading the situation. Isabel pops out of nowhere, mocking Hayes for falling for the dirty trick. The demon laughs, telling the maid to find a purer guy. Hayes tries to defend herself, stammering over her words. Isabel slaps a hand over Hayes's mouth to silence the excuses. Jared ignores them both. He points a glowing finger and demands they increase the training intensity. Deep in the forest of nightmares, a group of human guards stands watch near the border. They complain about the cold, relying on the new magic lamps for safety. The captain spots someone walking toward the restricted zone. He realizes it is Lord Jared, wandering out alone in the dark. Jared stands in an empty clearing, waiting for the attack. He pulls a glowing knife from his coat. He etches a massive magic circle into a dark purple stone. He remembers the lore. Caribia used to be destroyed every year by monster outbreaks. The other territories let Caribia burn so they could profit from the ruins. The previous lord desperately wanted an army to stop the slaughter. Jared intends to honor that wish right here, right now. He presses the glowing stone into the dirt. A massive blue barrier erupts into the sky. The ground shakes as massive footsteps approach. A blue ogre roars, demanding human blood. The monster army rides forward on armored elephants, eager to crush humanity. The commander stands before a swirling red interdimensional gate. The blue ogre commander orders the charge. The horde floods through the portal. They hit the dirt, laughing at their easy escape from the demon realm. The commander spots a single human standing in front of them. A massive ogre raises his club to crush the boy into mincemeat. Jared doesn't move an inch. The commander waits. He expects his vanguard to return with the kill. He notices the surroundings haven't changed. They are not advancing. The vanguard realizes they are trapped. Jared's blue barrier seals the entire area. The portal is useless. Jared introduces his custom trap, a distorted dimension built from pure magic. He explains the physics. The walls loop infinitely. There is no escape. The ogre commander glares down at the arrogant human. Jared smiles and formally welcomes the demon army to Caribia. The commander demands to know who possesses this kind of power. He assumes Jared is a weapon developed by the Holy Empire for the coming war. The commander has a rough idea of what is happening. He figures a barrier this complex must drain massive amounts of mana. Jared confirms the theory. If they wait, the magic will eventually unravel. But the commander refuses to wait. He orders his lieutenant, Tabanin, to strike. A goblin watches, expecting a boring execution. Tabanin readies his massive axe, promising a painless death. Jared summons raw nightmare magic. Dark purple energy wraps around his hand. The commander's eyes go wide in terror. He senses the horrifying pressure spiking from the boy. He realizes the vanguard he sent in first never returned because they were already dead. He screams for Tabanin to stop. It is too late. A massive blast of golden fire erupts. The explosion obliterates the lieutenant instantly. The ogre horde watches in complete shock. The commander panics and orders the entire army to attack at once. Jared raises his hand, a complex golden circle glowing above him. Meteors of fire rain down from the artificial sky. The roaring flames lock onto their targets. The ogres scream as the fire consumes their war elephants. The commander roars in agony as his army burns to ash. Meanwhile, in the Ronella territory, Lord Batman sits at his desk, stressing over his collapsing economy. His treaty is ending, and Caribia is squeezing him out. He needs a solution. A frantic guard bursts through the door. The guard stammers, reporting an invasion force of about 100 enemies. Batman throws a heavy book at him, furious for being disturbed over a minor raid. He asks how their massive fortress could possibly fall to such a small group. The guard delivers the fatal news. Defectors open the gates from the inside. Lord Batman demands his guards clear a path through the stone corridors. His own researchers deliver the fatal news regarding Caribia's disease cure. Duplicating the formula is mathematically impossible. The defectors block the exit, refusing to let his greed poison the territory any longer. Batman snaps, ordering ordering an immediate execution of the mutineers. A cloaked figure steps into the fray, taking command of the situation without raising his voice. The corrupt lord smiles, assuming the intruders just walked blindly into a slaughter. Steel slides from its sheath. The cloak drops to reveal the elite Aggressio Royal Guard, ready to wipe the floor with them. Back in the Forest of Nightmares, the Blue Ogre Vanguard meets a wall of pure fire. Jared holds the line alone, feeding raw mana into the inferno. A heavy stone spear flies straight for his skull. The projectile shatters on impact. The legendary mirror armor renders ranged attacks useless. The goblin sniper panics, realizing his perfect shot did nothing. Jared locks onto the high ground and returns the favor. The sniper is incinerated on the spot. A system alert chimes mid-battle. A new title doubles his fire damage. The young lord grins. Pyromania suits him. A towering armored ogre singles him out, furious at the bottleneck. The beast charges blindly through the smoke. The monster's own war elephant crashes into the dirt, unable to push through the heat. The commander leaps high into the air, bringing a massive hammer down to flatten the human. Jared uses blink to dodge the cratering impact, but the giant recovers instantly. The commander's eyes bulge in sheer disbelief. His devastating follow-up punch gets caught barehanded. Jared's strength-boosting artifact holds the line. The boy smirks, admitting the boss is far more entertaining than the cannon fodder. A concussive wave of heat erupts from his palms. The commander roars in agony as the flames stick to his skin. He summons a protective barrier and triggers his rapid recovery skill. Jared counters the heat with a blinding barrage of razor-sharp ice. The sudden temperature drop shatters the monster's defenses. The giant glares through the frost, demanding to know what kind of human wields dual elements like this. Jared answers by unleashing his newest toy, a colossal serpent made of pure magma. The construct towers over the battlefield, radiating lethal heat. The remaining grunts abandon their posts. If the commander is losing, they have zero chance. Jared stretches a hand forward, cutting off the retreat. The interdimensional gate warps and snaps shut. The pocket dimension unravels perfectly. The trap is secured. He hits the dirt, gasping for breath after burning through a massive mana reserve. The dimensional anchor shatters into pieces. The illusion drops, revealing the quiet forest clearing. Jared stares up at the night sky, hoping his predecessor is watching. Back at Ronella, Batman is having a terrible night. The Caribbean forces stand tall, unbothered by the corrupt noble's empty threats. A heavily armored hand grabs him by the hair. The elite guard drags him across the floor. Ronella falls without a massive siege. The system tallies the forest victory, granting the Monster Slayer achievement. Mind's Eye upgrades, providing immunity to visual disruptions. The new skill highlights enemy weak points, a massive tactical advantage. Deep in the woods, Jared waits in the shadows. Princess Myra emerges, wearing a simple cloak to hide her royal status. She delivers the heavy news. The King of Cinders has passed away. Jared plays his part, offering quiet condolences for the sudden loss. The situation is dire. Prince Ian's condition is deteriorating, leaving the throne vulnerable. Jared runs the calculations. His interventions have drastically altered the original timeline. He gives the princess 3 strict instructions for the coming chaos. First, Prince Isel must remain strictly neutral to survive the impending civil war. By playing the mediator, Isel can absorb Prince Ian's loyalist faction without shedding blood. They need hard evidence linking the other princes to the Dark Umber Church. Until that proof is secured, they must lay low like herbivores surrounded by predators. Myra lowers her head, grateful for the strategic lifeline. Jared reminds her this is no time for apologies. The survival game has begun. Back at the estate, Caribia's internal affairs numbers look deceptively average. The stats are intentionally tuned to match the lowest annexed region to avoid unwanted attention. The administrative load is crushing his managers. He desperately needs new talent. If Julian collapses from overwork, the entire territorial economy goes with him. Finding reliable executives in a medieval world is a massive headache. A sudden shift in the air breaks his concentration. A towering old man with a long white beard stands just a few feet away. The system throws an error. The level gap is too massive to scan the 9th class Grand Mage, Belhard. Jared scrambles to his feet, putting on an exaggerated display of respect. The old master smirks, admitting he was curious about the boy who annexed multiple territories overnight. Jared asks if the mage knew his peace-loving father. Belhard refuses to discuss the past. He is here strictly to deliver advice on reaching the 5th class. The young lord sits like an eager student, playing the humble rookie perfectly. The Grand Mage shuts down any hopes of a permanent apprenticeship. Jared assures him he expects no such commitment. Belhard begins his lecture, recalling his own arduous journey to mastering high-tier magic. He talks about the spiritual boundaries required to break past the 4th class. Jared zones out, reflecting on his own truth. He was just a corporate worker who died at his desk. His entire motivation for expanding Caribia was pure, unfiltered survival instinct. He built this army to protect the people who relied on him. He never let the cheat skills make him arrogant. He knows exactly how strong his future enemies will be. Every move, every annexation, every execution was to ensure his found family lives to see tomorrow. He replaced his fear of death with the drive to protect. He knows human limits. He knows a single misstep means game over. That is why he delegates. That is why he surrounds himself with geniuses. His strength does not exist in a vacuum. He survives because of the people fighting beside him. A massive surge of mana erupts from his core, shattering the calm atmosphere. A pillar of pure magical energy shoots straight into the sky. The Grand Mage stumbles backward, his jaw hanging open. Jared flexes his fingers, calmly announcing he just reached the 5th class. He activates the 5th class invisibility spell, fading into thin air. Belhard screams. Nobody achieves a class advancement in the middle of a casual conversation. The old master realizes this kid has absolutely zero established limits. Jared drops the cloak, thrilled with the new tactical possibilities. Belhard turns his back. He refuses to stick around and watch a teenager break the laws of magic. He fulfilled the request. His job here is done. Jared offers to escort the legendary mage to the border. The old man waves him off, demanding to be left alone. He admits his final destination is the eastern continent, leaving the northern chaos behind. January 1st. Exactly 1 year has passed since the journey began. The transformation from an incompetent lord to a regional powerhouse is complete. He enters his private quarters, a specific plan in mind. He pulls the legendary Laugher's potion from his inventory. The artifact grants a massive experience boost, but comes with a hidden bug. Filling the empty bottle with blessed water on New Year's Day resets the item. He downs the glowing liquid, securing 3 instant level ups. He dumps every single new stat point directly into his mana pool. He intentionally stalled his leveling to keep Deluxe Ring active, which doubles his power against stronger foes. With the Cinder's kingdom stabilizing, it is time to drag his disciples into a real dungeon. A system alert chimes. Julian learned a lesson in administration, granting Jared passive stat points. Upon hitting the 5th class, he selected a specific system perk to reinforce his master-disciple bonds. His current roster includes Hayes, Isabel, Reina, and Mia. The upgrade expands his teaching capacity to 8 slots. The passive gains will be astronomical. A memory surfaces of his clumsy attempt to force Chloe into a formal student contract. She rejected the rigid oath, wanting a more organic bond. He dropped the paperwork, promising to answer her questions naturally during their spars. She lunged at him with a wooden sword, testing his defenses instantly. A sharp strike grazed his arm, drawing a clean line of blood. He used the fresh wound to establish the blood-binding contract without her realizing it. He masked the magical ritual by comedically screaming about the lack of a warning. She dropped to one knee, formally requesting his guidance to surpass her limits. She admitted she had wanted his tutelage for months but lacked the courage to ask. Jared shakes the memory off. He has more pressing technical work to finish. He activates the reproduction skill, a notoriously difficult artisan technique. By dismantling old artifacts and merging their cores, he can bypass the body's equip limits. If the game engine leaves a loophole, he will exploit it until it shatters. Local craftsmen fear breaking magical items, believing it invites divine punishment. Jared relies on Bara's limited edition carving tool to ensure surgical precision. He leans back in his chair, his spine popping after hours of micro-adjustments. Another notification pops up. Raki's mastered a sword skill, feeding Jared more passive points. The compound interest of his talented subordinates is creating an unstoppable snowball effect. Every single variable is being optimized for the endgame. He funnels 3,000 mana into the hovering cores to finalize the fusion. The process succeeds. He acquires 2 new crafting-related skills from the merge. The gamble paid off. The broken loot from Mahart's tomb can finally be reconstructed. Hayes pokes her head through the door, reminding him it is time for evening training. She promises to wait for him at the sparring grounds. Jared scrambles to clean his desk. He lost track of time during the craft. Outside, Chloe glares daggers through the window, out of patience. Miles away, the kingdom of cinders sleeps under a tense night sky. A sealed report from Caribia is held over an open flame. Prince Isel watches the parchment turn to ash, internalizing the military intelligence. Back at the estate, the system finalizes the stats for the newly minted Bara ring. The artifact provides a massive across-the-board boost to physical and magical defense. Jared laughs at the naming convention, amused that the ring adopted the name of the carving knife. The reinforced teacher's grace system locks in, doubling the stat rewards from his disciples. Out on the training grounds, a high-speed fireball explodes against Chloe's guard. He praises her reaction time but warns her not to leave any openings. She slips through the smoke, driving her wooden blade forward with lethal intent. Jared detonates a blinding flash of light magic right in her face. She halts her advance, frustrated that he exploited her reliance on visual tracking. She mutters about wanting to train 24 hours a day just to keep up with his growth. Jared lowers his hands. Her focus is drifting again. She admits she got nervous because he was staring at her so intensely. The emotional distraction derailed her combat awareness. He tosses her a canteen and calls for a mandatory break. He reminds her that a momentary lapse in focus on a real battlefield means instant death. He points directly at her forehead, showing exactly where a real blade would have landed. She argues that taking a hit to the hair isn't a big deal, missing the lesson. Jared takes a swig of water, warning her the next mistake will cost her a lot more than a haircut. The heavy clanking of armor interrupts the lecture. Rakiz pushes through the gates. The chief guard pauses to catch his breath, breath, looking frantic. Chloe slumps onto the bench, annoyed that her private training session is over. She stares at the canteen, wishing she had just kept her guard up. Rakiz apologizes for the early intrusion, his face flushed from the sprint. He awkwardly asks if he just interrupted a romantic rendezvous. Jared shuts the joke down instantly. They need to focus on the intelligence report. The commander's demeanor hardens. The situation in the capital has deteriorated. The civil war in the Cinder's kingdom is no longer a quiet political shadow game. The second and third princes have mobilized their armies, splitting the nation into a bloody north-south conflict. Jared asks if the Caribbean military forces are ready for deployment. Rakiz confirms the heavy infantry divisions have completed their brutal 6-month training regimen. Olsen's mercenary unit has seamlessly integrated into the command structure. The commander draws his new weapon, eager to demonstrate its quality. It is a pristine Chaldea sword, forged from the ultra-rare magical or secured during the expansion. Jared beams, asking how the prototype handles against standard military gear. Rakiz confidently states it slices through high-quality iron shields like butter. The technological advantage is secured. Caribia's armory is now leagues above the surrounding territories. The commander vows to cut down any threat that approaches his lord. He suddenly lowers his voice, checking the perimeter for eavesdroppers. Jared snaps his fingers, casting a localized mute spell to secure the conversation. A purple dome of silence envelopes them, blocking out the rest of the courtyard. He gives Rakiz the signal to deliver the classified surveillance findings. Rakiz pulls out a magical recording device. The covert operation was a massive success. The hidden cameras captured black mages practicing forbidden rituals just outside Caribia's borders. Interrogations confirmed the cultists belonged to the infamous Umber Church. Jared clenches his gauntlet. He finally has the perfect justification for war. Eradicating a dark cult provides an unimpeachable moral high ground to launch an invasion. Radiusism is the absolute law of the land. Practicing dark magic is the ultimate heresy. Any noble protecting the Umber Church forfeits their right to royal protection. This loophole allows Caribia to legally annex the neutral territories shielding the cultists. Rakiz asks for the exact coordinates of the enemy camps. Jared lists the regions: Accra, Mudlawn, and Letica. The three territories form a vital buffer zone between Caribia and the raging civil war. A sharp headache strikes him. The game's timeline is accelerating dangerously fast. The Umber Church has emerged 3 years earlier than they did in the original lore. Rakiz tightens his grip on the Chaldea sword, waiting for the final command. Jared orders the immediate public broadcast of the surveillance footage across the kingdom. While the public digests the scandal, Caribia will launch a synchronized invasion of the three buffer lands. The elite Aggressio guards will spearhead the assault to ensure a swift victory. The heavily armored platoon stands ready to execute the purge. With the royal family distracted by their own civil war, nobody can intervene. The tactical meeting concludes. Jared dismisses Chloe, ending her training for the day. She watches him walk away, realizing he was distracted because he was orchestrating a full-scale continental war. 3 months later, the map of the northern continent is completely redrawn. The green banners of Caribia fly over the newly conquered territories. Accra, Mudlawn, and Letica capitulated almost immediately, overwhelmed by the tactical blitz. The Aggressio guards and Olsen's mercenaries crushed whatever minor resistance attempted to hold the line. At the center of the devastation stood Jared, a 26-year-old commander wielding 5th-class magic. Inside the Cinder's capital, the public watches the leaked surveillance footage with horror. Princess Myra observes the rioting crowds from the safety of the palace balcony. She turns to her brother, Prince Isel, asking for his assessment of the chaos. Isel admits he was terrified Jared's gamble would fail, but the young lord played the board flawlessly. Myra smiles, deeply impressed by how Jared dismantled his enemies using irrefutable evidence rather than a siege. The footage legally paralyzes the rival factions. The noble houses cannot risk defending proven heretics. In a nation built on holy doctrine, association with the Umber Church is political suicide. Princes Pudelin and Jess have crossed a threshold they can never return from. The royal palace sits quietly, but the true war is about to breach its gates. Isel collapses into his chair, exhausted from managing the internal fallout. He burns a coded dispatch from Jared, ensuring no paper trail connects them to the propaganda leak. He realizes his ascension to the throne is practically guaranteed now, but the sheer cunning required to orchestrate this coup leaves him slightly terrified of his new ally. Meanwhile, in the captured Fourth Land, a furious scream echoes across the burning fortress. A Caribbean knight forces a defecting soldier to his knees. A massive broadsword flies through the air, impaling the traitor instantly. Jared stands amidst the carnage, casually praising the lethal efficiency of the Chaldea blades. Rakiz approaches, his white armor heavily stained with the enemy's blood. He reports the remaining hostile forces threw down their weapons and begged for mercy. Jared orders them disarmed and locked in the holding cells to await formal judgment. The commander beams with pride. The Caribbean army has cemented its reputation as an unstoppable force. Watching from a ridge, Prince Pudelin grips his reins, his mind fracturing. Jared thanks his chief guard for orchestrating the flawless military advance. Rakiz drops to one knee, stating that fighting for this territory is the greatest honor of his life. Jared stares at the horizon. The momentum is fully on their side. Rakiz eagerly volunteers to lead the vanguard for the next push. Jared pauses, struck by the commander calling him Lord, a title traditionally reserved for kings. The Green Star banner snaps in the wind. The march continues. Another 3 months pass. The dust settles over the newly annexed regions. Jared traces the massive new borders of Caribia across his tactical map. A system prompt warns him that the territory has reached its absolute maximum expansion limit. Any further conquests will have to be classified as an entirely separate dominion. He is awarded the title of Great Lord, triggering a massive continental blessing. He reads the perks. His lands are now immune to natural disasters, droughts, and plagues for 2 years. Another alert chimes. The mass production of the magical imaging devices is finally complete. He smirks. The timing is absolutely impeccable. The trap is fully set. Violent knocking rattles his study door. Hayes screams for him to open up. She bursts into the room, hopping from foot to foot in pure, frantic excitement. Jared tells her to breathe, but she is overwhelmed with emotion. She finally achieved her goal. She has awakened her true divine power. Jared drops his pen, stunned by the massive power leap. They throw their hands in the air, celebrating the incredible breakthrough. The system highlights the difference. A standard healer provides basic, linear recovery. Divine power fundamentally changes the math, doubling the base output of every spell. At higher tiers, the multiplier turns a single divine healer into a walking hospital. She credits the awakening entirely to the grueling training regimen Jared forced on her. The cursed red bracelet constantly drained her life force, pushing her to the brink. The blue recovery ring forced her mana circuits to rapidly rebuild themselves under extreme stress. She laughs, amazed that his terrifying Eastern training methods actually worked. Jared leans in, asking if she can deploy intermediate-tier magic with the new divine output. She blushes, confidently confirming that her mana reserves can handle the load. Jared immediately pulls a dagger, ready to slice his own arm to test the healing speed. Hayes shrieks and grabs his wrist, horrified that he would willingly stab himself. She traces the dark burn scar on his forearm, her eyes filling with sorrow. She admits that seeing his permanent injuries was the sole reason she pushed herself to awaken. Jared smirks, entirely ruining the touching moment by telling her to make him feel it quickly. Missing the joke, she blasts his arm with a concentrated wave of divine green light. Meanwhile, Prince Putilin shatters a heavy oak desk with a single, rage-fueled strike. General Capri tries to steady the furious royal, but the situation is rapidly collapsing. The first prince was assassinated by poison. The third prince's army was crushed in the field. Putilin assumed the throne was his, underestimating the neutral fourth prince, Isel. Then the surveillance footage leaked, exposing Putilin's deep ties to the Umber cult. The public relations disaster destroyed his royal legitimacy overnight. He glares at the wall, his sanity unraveling under the pressure. He turns his fury onto Capri, demanding to know how Caribia manufactured the recording devices. The general stammers, swearing he had no intelligence regarding northern magical engineering. Putilin screams at him to shut up, drawing his heavy broadsword. A clean, brutal strike severs the general's life. The prince executes his own commander. He turns to his remaining lieutenant, his eyes burning with unhinged malice. He orders an immediate, desperate march on the capital to assassinate Prince Isel. The heavy cavalry charges down the mountain road, driven by their leader's madness. The lieutenant begs him to reconsider, warning that Isel's defenses are fully prepared. Putilin refuses to listen. He blames the entire collapse of his empire on Jared. He believes if he slaughters Isel's vanguard, the capital will surrender out of fear. He spurs his warhorse faster, consumed by bloodlust. The lieutenant argues they should retreat and regroup, not launch a suicide assault. He realizes the prince is no longer operating on logic. The dark magic has ruined his mind. Putilin is hallucinating, seeing the mocking faces of his enemies in the shadows. He raises his blade, ordering a full-speed charge straight into the valley. The warhorses thunder across the dirt road, blind to the danger ahead. A small, glowing purple device beeps rapidly in the center of the path. The road detonates in a colossal chain reaction of magical fire. In the capital, the citizens watch the live broadcast of the ambush. The people are horrified to see the prince relying on chaotic black magic artifacts. The public consensus shifts permanently. Putilin is a traitor to the Holy Crown. With the rivals disgraced, the citizens rally behind the only clean candidate left. Prince Isel rides through the city gates, flanked by his pristine royal guard. He smiles warmly, promising to purge the darkness and restore peace to the nation. The crowds roar in adoration, welcoming their inevitable new king. Back at the ambush site, thick black smoke settles over the cratered road. Putilin marches through the wreckage, his armor dented and his mind shattered. He stops. His own lieutenant stands blocking the path, red blade drawn. The traitor declares the prince's reign ends here. The mutiny is absolute. From a high vantage point, Jared watches the chaos unfold perfectly. He uses wind magic to float down into the crater, joining the confrontation. His upgraded mind's eye scans the prince, dissecting his remaining combat abilities. Putilin forces himself upright, spitting blood onto the charred earth. The system tags him as a level 77 boss wielding Cinder-style arcane arts and Umber faith. Jared lands gracefully, offering a mocking bow to the ruined royal. royal. The prince recognizes the blonde hair instantly. The architect of his nightmare is here. He snarls, promising to rip Jared's head off for interfering in the royal succession. Jared shrugs, casually noting that his fate certainly doesn't end in this ditch. He flashes a cold smile, guaranteeing that Putilin is the one who won't be walking away. The prince draws his heavy broadsword, preparing to execute the arrogant mage. Jared summons dual spheres of concentrated fire, daring the swordsman to close the gap. Putilin lunges forward with explosive speed, a blur of red hair and steel. Jared hurls a massive fireball straight at the prince's chest. The prince braces his blade, using his anti-magic armor to weather the intense heat. The flames wash over him, but his momentum doesn't slow for a second. He executes a magic dispersion slash, parting the fireball cleanly in two. He follows up instantly with a quick sword thrust aimed directly at Jared's throat. Jared blinks in genuine surprise at the speed of the royal technique. He teleports backward just as the blade grazes his cloak. Jared laughs, mocking the prince for relying on cheap Umbra cult tricks. The insult hits a nerve. Putilin screams and swings with reckless fury. Jared draws his Chaldea sword, deciding to test his own physical limits. He channels raw fire mana directly into his gauntlet. A rapid barrage of golden flame arrows forces the prince to pivot defensively. Putilin deflects the projectiles, boasting that basic elements cannot pierce his arcane arts. Jared analyzes the defense. Without Deluxe Bracelet bridging the level gap, this would be a difficult fight. The prince leaps through the smoke, aiming a devastating downward cleave. Jared slides under the strike, relying entirely on his enhanced agility. Putilin grinds his teeth, frustrated that a mere fourth-class mage is matching his speed. He doesn't know Jared leveled up. Black, corrupted blood drips from the prince's armor onto the stone. Jared charges a complex magical seal, smiling as the prince begins to pant. Putilin roars, declaring his sword will shatter any spell thrown his way. Jared unleashes the flame burst. A massive magma serpent erupts from the earth. The prince slices the fiery construct perfectly in half with a single, desperate swing. He screams in triumph, assuming the lethal threat is neutralized. The magma serpent regenerates instantly, twisting its massive jaws toward him. While the prince panics, Jared charges a concentrated kinetic force missile. The white streak of pure energy tracks the prince through the inferno. Putilin turns his head just as the projectile breaches his blind spot. The missile detonates against his chest plate with bone-shattering force. Jared follows up immediately by dropping a colossal flame arrow from the sky. The prince's eyes widen as the golden fire crashes down upon him. A blinding flash of white light consumes the canyon. The concussive shockwave obliterates the remaining rock formations. The flames dissipate, leaving a massive scorched crater. Putilin struggles to remain standing, his heavy armor heavily compromised. He tries to cast a repelling barrier, but his mana circuits are fried. He collapses to his knees, coughing up dark, corrupted blood. His specialized anti-magic techniques failed against the sheer volume of the assault. Jared walks calmly through the smoke, uninjured. He explains the tactical sequence. The flame arrow was a decoy to land the force missile. He lectures the ruined royal on the fatal flaw of relying on the Umber Church's borrowed power. Putilin punches the dirt in sheer frustration, his grand ambitions reduced to ash. He screams for General Capri to intervene, completely delusional. Jared coldly informs him that Capri is dead by the prince's own hand. The prince mutters incoherently, his mind fully broken by the reality of his failure. A heavy steel boot to the face silences the pathetic rambling. A glowing red artifact falls from the prince's shattered armor. Jared picks it up, the system identifying it as Cluizi's red light necklace. He recognizes the name instantly. Cluizi was the lunatic leader of the dark cult. The plague-doctored madman specialized in mind control and religious manipulation. Jared realizes the necklace fed the prince's dark ambition until it destroyed him entirely. He crushes the cursed gem in his gauntlet, breaking the control spell. A violent clash of steel draws his attention back to the perimeter. Rakiz is locked in brutal combat with the traitorous lieutenant. The enemy's red blade strikes with terrifying speed, pushing the heavy commander back. Rakiz grinds his teeth, struggling to parry the relentless barrage. The lieutenant launches a massive crescent wave of pure kinetic energy. The strike hammers Rakiz in the chest, launching him violently through the air. He hits the dirt hard, his armor deeply gouged by the impact. Jared uses Blink to cross the battlefield, catching the commander before he falls again. The elite Aggressio guards swarm the area, weapons drawn and furious. The traitor readies his blade, preparing to execute a massive sweeping attack. The heavy infantry forms a shield wall, surrounding the lieutenant. A blinding cross-slash of holy magic subdues the enemy forces instantly. The remaining hostile soldiers drop their weapons in sheer terror. The battle ends. Putilin's entire army is stripped of their gear and bound in chains. The second prince is thrown into a high-security cell to rot in absolute disgrace. With the rivals eliminated, Prince Isel ascends to the throne to the roar of the public. White petals rain down on the grand hall as the ninth king of Cinders takes his seat. Jared kneels before the new monarch, offering a formal, humble greeting. King Isel smiles warmly, openly acknowledging Jared as the savior of his crown. He praises the young lord's flawless execution of the civil war. As a reward, he formally offers to make Caribia Caribia a direct vassal of the royal kingdom. Jared keeps his head bowed but politely refuses the massive political elevation. The royal court gasps in shock. Rejecting a king's direct offer is practically treason. Jared smirks at the floor, knowing exactly how this plays out. Isel silences the room and officially elevates Caribia to an independent dukedom. He issues a royal decree exempting Duke Jared from any binding oaths of allegiance. To cement the alliance, he gifts the annexed Myzerian territory directly to the new duke. The court erupts in applause, formally recognizing Jared's absolute power in the north. Jared waves to the cheering citizens outside. The useless noble of the past is officially dead. Later that night, in the quiet backwoods of the kingdom, Rakiz tries on the captured red armor looted from the defeated general. Jared tosses him the red mood sword to complete the stolen set, claiming spoils of war. Rakiz grips the crimson blade, feeling it immediately resonate with his aura. He turns to his lord, his expression shifting from excitement to profound seriousness. He asks for permission to speak freely. He drops to one knee, admitting that while others pray to unseen gods, his only deity is standing right in front of him. Jared is genuinely moved by the heavy, absolute confession of loyalty. The system chimes. Rakiz's loyalty metric skyrockets by 360 points. The massive surge triggers the commander's third awakening, cementing his elite status. Jared places a hand on his knight's shoulder, deeply respecting the unbreakable bond. The poignant moment shatters instantly as Rakiz bursts into ugly, snot-filled tears of gratitude. The next day, inside the lavish VIP reception room of the royal palace, King Isel pours tea, inviting Jared to drop the formalities and speak as equals. Princess Myra sits beside him, watching the young duke with careful anticipation. Isel shifts the conversation to the long-term future of the kingdom. Myra praises Caribia's terrifying development speed, recognizing Jared as a force of nature. The king agrees. He wants that undeniable power permanently bound to the crown. He states that a standard alliance is too fragile for the turbulent years ahead. He has considered the best way to secure their nation's prosperity. He formally proposes a political marriage between Duke Jared and Princess Myra. Myra blushes deeply, remaining silent as she waits for the response. Jared processes the offer. A royal marriage would grant him limitless continental influence. He forces a polite laugh, thanking the king for the incredible honor. He locks eyes with Myra, acknowledging her immense value to the kingdom. She waits, clearly hopeful that he will accept the arrangement. Jared sets his teacup down. He stares blankly for a second, formulating the safest rejection. He states he deeply values their friendship and alliance. He notes her decisive and sacrificial nature makes her a perfect royal, but he formally and flatly rejects the proposal. He explains that the northern region is too volatile to tie his autonomy down. He vows to help eradicate the Umber Church, but he will not become a royal pawn. He invokes the memory of his father, Barrett, claiming neutrality is a family tradition. Isel sighs, accepting the rejection. Pushing the powerful duke would only fracture their alliance. Myra looks down, struggling to hide her profound disappointment. Jared quickly adds that he views himself as far too insignificant for a princess of her caliber. She snaps her head up, surprised by his sudden self-deprecation. He drops the humble act. If they maintain a friendly alliance, the kingdom will prosper. But he delivers a final, razor-sharp warning regarding their future relations. If the Cinder's kingdom ever points a blade at Caribia, he will respond with absolute, lethal force. A heavy downpour begins, signaling the start of the harsh northern monsoon season. Jared steps out of the palace, ignoring Rakiz's suggestion to use a teleportation spell. He wants to survey the flooded regions on foot to gauge the kingdom's stability. The torrential rain hammers the cobblestone streets of the capital. The Aptatio River threatens to overflow and devastate the neighboring buffer zones. Caribia is safe due to the Great Lord blessing, but the refugees will inevitably flood his borders. He realizes the economic strain of the displaced populations will be immense. Citizens scramble for shelter, terrified of the impending epidemic. He pulls his dark green hood low, stepping out of the main thoroughfare. He pushes through the heavy wooden doors of a local tavern to escape the storm. The patrons inside are loudly gossiping about Duke Jared's explosive rise to power. He hides a smirk behind his hand, highly amused by the wildly exaggerated rumors. He orders a single beer, hoping to quietly gather some local intelligence. The tavern doors swing open again, letting a gust of cold rain inside. The newcomer scans the packed room, looking for an empty chair. Every table is filled with stranded travelers and loud mercenaries. He spots the solitary hooded figure and approaches the table. Jared glances up, his upgraded mind's eye activating automatically. The system panel glitches wildly. The stranger possesses the blessings of the deity lunatic use. Jared's breath catches. A deity's blessing confirms this random guy is a true protagonist-level entity. The blonde swordsman flashes a bright, goofy smile, radiating zero hostility. He introduces himself as Kaikal and asks to share the table. Jared lowers his hood, casually giving his real name. Kaikal's jaw drops. He instantly recognizes the legendary duke and causes a scene. Jared shushes him quickly, ordering another round of drinks to smooth things over. Kaikal reveals he is a cast-out noble from the wealthy southern dukedom of Charlotte. Jared recognizes the name. The Charlotte Mallet family controls the entire southern business district. It is a massive syndicate, meaning Kaikal was likely exiled due to succession politics. He asks why a southern noble would wander all the way to the frozen north. Kaikal slides a gold coin across the table, paying for both their drinks. He laughs off his tragic backstory, claiming he is just trying to make a living with his terrible sword skills. Jared clinks his mug against the strangers, playing along with the humble act. Kaikal notes they are the exact same age, 26, and practically vibrates with excitement. He jokes that he must be blind to not realize how young the famous Duke actually is. Despite his divine backing, Kaikal acts incredibly awkward and unconfident. Jared analyzes him closely. True protagonists rarely look like heroes at the start of their journey. He decides to keep a very close eye on this walking anomaly. He wants to see exactly what path the man chosen by the gods will carve through this world. He asks Kaikal about his immediate travel plans. Kaikal casually mentions he is joining the Arakan mercenary group for a dungeon raid. The group is notorious for taking suicidal jobs and treating their rookies like disposable meat shields. Their target is the underground caves of the ruins, one of the 3 deadliest dungeons in existence. Jared recognizes the name immediately. It is an absolute death trap. It is also on Jared's personal checklist of high-tier dungeons he wants to clear for loot. He wishes the blonde swordsman a safe return from the insane expedition. They toast to the prosperity of Caribia and the survival of the foolish mercenary. Kaikal finishes his beer, grabs his massive broadsword, and prepares to head back into the storm. He apologizes for cutting the meeting short, but his contact is waiting. Jared tells him to visit the estate if he survives, offering to return the favor with proper Caribbean ale. Kaikal grins, promising to take him up on that offer someday. The tavern doors swing shut as the true protagonist vanishes into the monsoon. Jared stares at the wooden door, his mind racing with the tactical implications of their meeting. Suddenly, a violent, blinding pain spikes directly behind his eyes. The sound of the pouring rain fades into a high-pitched ringing. He clutches his skull as a pair of massive, glowing blue eyes open in the darkness of his mind. A sharp, stabbing pain pierces Jared's mind. Across the smoky tavern, a woman tracks him with glowing blue eyes. The Red Queen, a legendary figure blessed by the evil deity Helasis. Kaikal stares wide-eyed, sensing the massive shift in magical pressure. Jared grips his forehead. The mental debuff hits hard and fast. The attack shatters against St. Gracia's ring before it can take root. The Red Queen tilts her head, genuinely confused by the resistance. She covers her mouth, her interest in the blonde stranger spiking. Kaikal downs his beer, frustrated that the gods haven't blessed his winning streak yet. The bald bodyguard signals that their time is up. He tells the queen they need to move. She grabs her cloak, her silent assassination attempt thwarted. Jared analyzes the escorts. No magic, just lethal, honed physical combat skills. The queen looks over her shoulder, leaving a clear threat hanging in the air. Kaikal takes another drink, oblivious to the invisible war that just ended 3 feet away. She promises they will meet again. Her bodyguards vault over the tavern balcony, making a theatrical exit into the night. July 1st, the annual monster outbreak hits the borders. The system announces the arrival of the horde. Jared uses the same spatial loop bug as last year to trap the vanguard inside a glowing barrier. He stands on the snowy cliff, watching the monsters run in endless circles. The trap holds them without a single breach. An armored ogre collapses into the dirt, dead from sheer exhaustion. The system floods Jared with passive magic defense points from his disciples' intense training. He checks his updated character sheet. His magic stat breaks 5,000. The sheer volume of magic resistance makes him laugh out loud. The system grades his new defense level. With almost 800 points, he possesses innate immunity to third-class magic. He can stand still and let mid-tier spells bounce right off his skin. A low growl breaks his focus. A dying ogre foams at the mouth, forcing words through broken teeth. The beast swears vengeance for Lord Agrat. Jared recognizes the name immediately. Agrat belongs to a very specific cult, the Keiko Church, another dark faith operating in the shadows. The game's narrative is accelerating. The dark faiths are mobilizing far earlier than the original timeline dictated. Back at the Caribia estate, the Industrial Revolution marches forward. Julian gives a tour of the new underground automated production facility. The massive machines churn out high-grade potions and landmines around the clock. Jared shifts the topic, checking on Isabel's charm training. She admits the 4-star charms present a brutal learning curve. He tells her not to push it. 3-star spells provide more than enough income. Isabel snaps. She isn't doing this for the money. She grips his shirt, her eyes burning with unreadable intensity. She drops a heavy truth. Their fates have been bound since her previous life. 65 years ago, a mob of villagers tied a young girl to a wooden stake. She burned alive, condemned as a witch by a fanatical empire. The flames consumed her while the crowd cheered for the execution of a demon. Isabel looks away, unwilling to share the darkest details. Jared realizes her cheerful attitude masks deep, unresolved trauma. He wants to find a way to lift that burden from her shoulders. He changes the subject, asking about her mana management limits. She pulls up her status window. She can ration her spells effectively for long combat encounters. Jared announces the next objective, a full dungeon raid. He warns her the required focus will match the legendary Mahart tomb. Isabel's eyes light up with immediate interest. The target is the demon army's refuge. She knows the location. The death toll there is legendary. She runs off to prepare, her dark mood shifting to pure excitement. Jared smiles. Giving her a dangerous objective keeps the dark thoughts at bay. He turns his attention back to the factory floor. He checks his inventory, looking for a specific item. The newly crafted recording device glows in his hands. The magical projector functions just like a modern movie camera. An idea forms. He knows exactly how to weaponize this technology. The culture in Caribbean is practically non-existent. A movie could bridge that gap. He imagines projecting a film against the city walls for the citizens to enjoy. The public would flock to it. But to make a convincing movie, he needs a lead actor who can manipulate public emotion without sounding like a cheap salesman. There is only one man in the kingdom fit for the job. Arkin's Pub, downtown Caribbean. A young worker hypes up the crowd for their evening speaker. The tavern erupts in applause as Valdez Handspeeder takes the stage. Jared watches from the back, his hood pulled low. The worker spots the Duke and almost blows his cover. Jared shushes him instantly. Valdez stands before the crowd, delivering a passionate speech about Caribbean's future. Jared nods. The delivery is flawless. The citizens eat up every word. The man has undeniable charisma, but Jared knows his true nature. In the game, Valdez was the top propagandist for the Demon King, a genuine villain who manipulated millions with a smile. Right now, he is a neutral piece on the board. Jared tells the worker he needs a private word with the star attraction. He asks for Valdez by name. The worker eagerly leads him toward the VIP room. She stops him in the hallway with a sudden thought. She mentions Tatar Island, pitching a massive business expansion with the Dark Elves. Jared listens, impressed by the local ambition. She guarantees she can get the Red Goblin King to mediate the trade deal. Jared agrees to the plan. Caribbean's economic influence continues to spread. They reach the heavy wooden door of the VIP suite. Jared drops the hood. Valdez turns around, recognizes the Duke immediately, and offers a deep, theatrical bow. The worker scurries off to fetch Caracas Petal tea. Jared enters the room, apologizing for the sudden intrusion. Valdez waves off the formalities, taking a seat. Jared pulls up the speaker's hidden stats. Rank S in elegant speech. Rank A in promotion. The perfect manipulator. Exactly what Caribbean needs. Just like Lena, Jared believes he can redirect this villain's future toward the light. The worker returns with the tea. Jared drops the offer. He wants Valdez to become Caribbean's Minister of Public Affairs. Valdez recoils in shock. A high-ranking government position for a tavern speaker is unheard of. Jared explains his reasoning. Most lords use propagandists to cover up their failures, but Caribbean is different. Jared puts the welfare of his people above all else. Valdez realizes the Duke is dead serious. He accepts the premise but has a counteroffer. The speaker places one condition on the deal. He refuses to work for a tyrant. He demands proof that Jared will lead with honor. He asks for a promise that Jared will become a leader of genuine virtue. Jared laughs. The game's greatest liar is demanding moral integrity. Valdez admits he isn't greedy for gold. His true ambition is to elevate a worthy king to the highest peak. A great value cannot be bought with mere pennies. The man is a kingmaker. He just needed the right king. In the game, he backed the Demon King because no human leader measured up to his standards. Jared flashes a confident smirk and promises to meet those expectations. Valdez closes his eyes, accepting the vow. They shake hands. The contract is sealed. The worker returns to collect the cups, oblivious to the historic alliance just forged. Jared and Valdez shake hands again in front of the staff to make it official. The worker beams, thrilled that the pub's best speaker just got promoted to the high court. They immediately get to work. Jared pitches the cinema concept to boost territory morale. Valdez loves the idea. He suggests their first project should document Jared's military achievements. Jared agrees. The movie will serve multiple strategic purposes. The speaker already has contacts in the cultural sector ready to start production. Jared raises his cup, toasting to the new venture. Valdez leans in with a second pitch. Jared tells him to speak freely. He wants to write an autobiography of the Duke's life. Jared grins. The propaganda machine is already spinning up. They spend the entire night mapping out the narrative of the Great Lord. The quill scratches across the parchment. Jared feels genuine camaraderie with the cunning speaker. The appointment of the new minister goes through without a single objection from the council. Valdez immediately launches into production for the movie. He sets to work on the autobiography. The cultural domination of Caribbean begins. Back in the study, Jared unrolls the massive blueprint of the demon refuge. The dungeon layout is a twisted nightmare of intersecting corridors. Chloe leans over his shoulder, reading the map in absolute silence. Jared jumps out of his skin. Her stealth stats bypass his awareness completely. She points to her absolute stealth skill, confirming the door was open anyway. She asks if he really needs to study the map this far in advance. Jared resumes the briefing. The refuge is an underground tomb built by demon worshippers. Chloe watches him ramble, unbothered by his intense focus. Over the years, countless human sacrifices saturated the stone with dark magic. The trapped souls warped the sanctuary into a lethal dungeon. Monsters spawn there regularly now, now. Chloe notes the physical combat challenge ahead. The enemies hit like trucks but possess incredibly low defense. A classic glass cannon build. They fear death more than anything. She assumes holy magic will be the key to breaking them. Jared shuts that down instantly. Holy magic is forbidden in this specific raid. Chloe asks for the reason. He tells her to trust his strategy and focus entirely on her dagger skills. He laughs, asking if she wants any more responsibilities dumped on her plate. Chloe blushes, caught off guard by his absolute confidence in her. Jared checks her stats. Her general inclination shows a mix of confusion and determination. He wonders who she has a crush on, assuming it's one of the handsome Aggressio guards. Chloe changes the subject, reminding him the training session starts soon. Jared heads out to the courtyard to meet the rest of the team. The raid group gathers. Hayes, Isabel, and Raquez stand ready. Mia, Lena, and Chloe complete the 7-person squad. Jared stands at the chalkboard, a 7-person raid against an impossible dungeon. He calls for any final questions. Isabel raises her hand, pointing out that 40A-class hunters failed to clear this place. Jared smirks. They aren't going to fight through the front door like amateurs. Night falls over the mountainous region bordering Caribia. The team sets up camp just outside the dungeon entrance to rest. Jared finds Lena keeping watch by the tree line. He praises her insane growth. A year ago, she was just a frightened kid in a mine. Lena smiles, declaring she isn't satisfied yet. She wants to show him a completely different level of power tomorrow. Lena admits that the entire territory worships the ground he walks on. His good governance turned a wasteland into a paradise. Jared stares into the dark woods, promising to lead them all back alive. Lena bows deeply, swearing her sword to his cause. A massive system alert triggers. Her loyalty maxes out at 200, unlocking her first awakening. Morning. The team stands before the gaping maw of the demon refuge. The stench of rotting bone hits them instantly. Jared conjures a sphere of light to push back the gloom. Hayes asks if she should use holy magic to cleanse the area. Jared reminds them of the twisted mechanic. Holy magic doubles their attack power here, but it also doubles the damage they take. Against glass cannon monsters, a double damage penalty guarantees death. A massive gust of wind erupts from behind them. Mia steps forward, smiling bright as she casts magic wind to blow the stench away. Jared is impressed. A class 1 mage using a class 2 spell. The team charges into the dark, weapons drawn. The stone walls close in around them. They march through the jagged corridors in tight formation. Jared takes the lead, ordering Lena to guard the rear. No one steps out of line. Lena acknowledges the command. A metallic crunch echoes as Jared steps on something hidden in the bones. He kneels down, brushing the dust off a strange piece of jewelry. Fleer's Curse, a legendary ring that promises infinite wealth, but melts the brain of anyone who holds it within 60 seconds. The only way to survive is to force the ring onto 4 other people before the timer runs out. The game developers put this trap right at the entrance to slaughter greedy rookies. The white skeletons scattered across the floor are the previous victims. Jared grips his head as the death curse triggers. Saint Gracia's ring flares to life, neutralizing the lethal debuff instantly. The cursed item purifies into Fleer's blessing. The trap breaks. He smiles at his team. The raid is already off to a perfect start. They bypass the main halls entirely, slipping through narrow, hidden cracks in the stonework. Raquez stares in disbelief as they avoid the slaughter zones. The shortcut leads them safely past the deadly first-floor choke points. Mia cheers, recalling how Jared used speed to kite 20 exploding red demons into a single kill zone. She beams, reliving the flawless execution of his past strategy. Chloe nods. It was a masterclass in mob manipulation. Lena asks what they are actually searching for down here. Jared peeks around a heavy stone pillar and grins. He found it. He holds his hand up, signaling the team to halt. He channels pure kinetic force into his palms and blasts the crumbling wall to dust. The smoke clears, revealing a massive hidden passageway. The real dungeon run begins now. He explains the map. The developers left broken shortcuts that connect the floors if you know where to punch. They reach a dead end. A solid slab of unbroken rock blocks the descent. Jared orders everyone to stand back. He pulls a purple mana crystal from his coat, a timed explosive mine from his own territory. He warns them that the blast will draw enemies from the other side. He plants 3 charges against the base of the wall. The explosion is deafening. The stone barrier crumbles into rubble. A swarm of red demons shrieks as the dust settles, their ambush ruined. Mia steps up, using her wind magic to push the rushing horde back. The demons struggle against the gale force winds. Lena steps in, bashing a demon out of the air with her heavy shield. Chloe moves like a shadow, severing the monsters before they can self-destruct. The few that manage to trigger their bombs detonate harmlessly against the reinforced shields. Hayes stays in the backline, keeping a constant stream of healing magic flowing over the vanguards. Jared claps his hands. The flawless team execution is exactly what he trained them for. He nods. The raid is proceeding right on schedule. They descend deeper. 4th underground floor. 8th stone chamber. Raquez asks if this is the mid-boss room they discussed in the briefing. Hayes shivers. This room is infamous for wiping out entire hunter squads. The traps in this chamber turn rookie mistakes into permanent casualties. Fleer, a massive, armored cyclops wielding dual-spiked maces forces blocks the heavy iron doors. Jared tells them the plan. They are going to ignore the boss completely. The team stares at him. Skipping a mandatory boss fight defies all logic. Mia is starry-eyed, fully trusting his insane tactics. Jared smirks. He knows every broken mechanic in this game. Rakis confirms they need to bypass the 8th chamber to access the lower floors. Jared walks over to a seemingly random section of the brick wall and pushes. The secret door grinds open. Rakis draws his sword, bracing for a swarm of demons on the other side. Jared points to a glowing purple crystal embedded in the floor. Divine power radiates from it, keeping the demons out. The room is pristine, a safe zone right before the final descent. Jared cracks his knuckles. From here on out, every monster they kill drops high-tier loot. The cleanup operation begins now. He casts haste and strength buffs on the entire party. The team glows with enhanced mana, ready to breach the 5th floor. The system finalizes the stats for Fleer's Blessing. The ring grants massive experience boosts, constant health regeneration, and a one-time evasion from absolute death. They hit the 5th floor. A squad of earth demons rolls toward them. These monsters boast insane physical resistance. Physical attacks do nothing. A white demon shrieks from the ceiling. They possess absolute magic immunity. Mia hurls a wind blade, but it bounces harmlessly off the white demon's skin. Jared orders the immediate split. He will handle the magic-resistant red demons. Rakis takes the left flank, holding the line with brute force. Chloe targets the white demons, exploiting their physical vulnerability. Mia focuses entirely on crowd control, pushing the enemies into the kill zones. Hayes uses her divine power to melt the earth demons, bypassing their physical armor entirely. Rakis swings his red broadsword, drawing the aggro of the entire right flank. Jared unleashes a barrage of fire, incinerating the charging red demons. The monsters detonate in massive explosions of corrupted energy. The battlefield turns into a charnel house. He wipes the sweat from his brow. One wrong step here guarantees instant death. System alerts flood his vision. He acquires the Red Demon Slayer title, granting a damage boost against evil entities. He grins. The loot drops are astronomical. 2 days later, 7th Stone Chamber. The attrition takes a heavy toll. Lena and Mia collapse against the wall, completely drained. Jared calls for a mandatory rest. There is no rival team behind them. They have time to recover. The girls fall asleep almost instantly on the cold stone floor. Jared doesn't need sleep thanks to his gorgeous necklace. He empties his loot bag. He sorts through a massive pile of glowing purple spirit stones. Supreme spirit stones, worth a fortune in gold or $1,000,000,000 in his past life. He pulls out a specialized artisan carving knife. He carves complex magical runes directly into the priceless gems. He risks destroying infinite wealth, but his mind remains completely calm. He grips the etched stone tight. He intends to become the true protagonist of this world. He slams 3 carved stones into the ground just outside the final boss room. The stones erupt with energy, creating 3 overlapping buff zones. He asks Chloe to test the array. She steps into the glowing purple circle. She walks toward the center of the magic field. She feels the continuous surge of healing, haste, and strength flowing into her body. Mia and Rakis rush into the circles, amazed by the endless stamina regeneration. Jared smiles. The foundation for the final boss fight is set. He outlines the strategy. When the boss wakes up, infinite waves of demons will flood the room. Lena and Mia will hold the left flank against the incoming swarm. Chloe takes the center. Rakis anchors the right. Isabel takes the artillery position in the back. Hayes complains. She doesn't have a designated role in the defense line. Jared pulls her aside. She is coming with him to fight the boss directly. The key to beating the dungeon lies ahead. The grand doors open. A long red carpet stretches to the throne. Gapages, the ruler of the demon's abode. A massive minotaur sleeping in heavy gold armor. Jared steps lightly onto the carpet, leading Hayes forward. He assures her the boss is in a deep sleep. He only wakes if the alarm triggers. He tosses glitter dust, revealing a dense grid of laser tripwires. Hayes realizes she has to navigate the lethal maze using pure flexibility. Jared wishes he had 6th-class teleportation magic, but they have to do this the hard way. Hayes ties her hair back, her expression shifting to absolute focus. She tosses her heavy cloak aside. She is ready. Chloe watches her begin the ascent. Isabel is stunned by the sheer physical control required. Hayes contorts her body, slipping through the razor-thin gaps in the lasers. One grazed wire means the whole room wakes up. Jared yells at her to be careful. Amazed she can bend her spine like a slime. She clears the hardest cluster and exhales sharply. She turns back, giving a confident thumbs up. Chloe and Lena watch in pure disbelief. Hayes nears the throne, panting heavily from the physical strain. Her foot slips on the slick stone. She hooks her pinky finger onto a tiny protruding rock, catching herself an inch above the laser. Jared catches his breath. That was way too close. The strategy relies on a simple concept. Water dripping on a rock eventually carves a hole. He asks Hayes how long she can cast intermediate healing magic without stopping. 30 seconds, a massive upgrade from her previous limit of 10. Jared praises her rapid growth. He casts a mute spell to block out the noise of the incoming battle. He grabs her hand. They scale the side of the throne. They stand right behind the sleeping Minotaur's horns. Jared prepares to cast cast a spell. Hayes panics, thinking he's going to wake the beast. He explains the deal and heal exploit. Gapages only wakes if the alarm lines are touched, or if he takes more than 3 points of damage at once. Down below, the demon horde starts swarming the room. The invasion has begun. Lena holds the line, her shield reinforced by the endless spirit stone buffs. Rakiz cleaves through the mob, taking heavy hits to protect the flank. The buff circles instantly heal their superficial wounds, removing the burden of attrition. Isabel drops artillery strikes on the approaching waves, keeping the alarm lines clear. An earth demon slips past Rakiz, rolling straight for the lasers. Chloe readies her dagger, knowing she lacks the magic damage to pierce its shell. Isabel rips open a dimension door. She launches a point-blank fireball through the portal, vaporizing the runner. Chloe and Mia cheer for the flawless intercept. On the throne, Jared gives the thumbs up. The floor team is holding perfectly. Hayes stares at the sleeping boss, her hands trembling. She admits this feels incredibly cowardly. She'd rather fight the boss head-on. She knows the Minotaur is not a normal enemy. Jared confirms her suspicions. He shuts her down. A direct assault requires 30 B-rank hunters. They have 7. If Gapages wakes up, he summons every monster on the floor into this room. Fleer's force field would also drop, bringing the mid-boss down on their heads. The trick to beating the room without waking him up is simple math. The boss wakes up at 3 points of damage. Jared's weakest spell does 5 damage. But if Hayes casts a continuous healing spell that restores 2.5 hit points per second, the net damage drops below the threshold. They are slowly bleeding the raid boss to death while he sleeps. The giant Minotaur doesn't even flinch as his health bar drains. To Gapages, the microscopic damage feels like a mild headache in a bad dream. Pebble bounces off the boss's head. The beast groans in its sleep. Jared declares it is time to end the raid. The boss's massive hand twitches. His health hits 0. The giant body disintegrates into dust before he ever opens his eyes. Jared and Hayes high-five. The most anticlimactic boss kill in history is a complete success. Down below, the summoned demons dissolve into ash as their master dies. Rakiz watches the giant crumble, amazed by his lord's flawless strategy. The system grants Jared the permanent Gapages will buff, massively increasing his experience gain. Transcendental amplification unlocks. He can now push spells past their coded limits. The mana cost multiplies exponentially with each tier of transcendence. A double transcendence strike costs 2,000 mana. Hayes tugs his sleeve. Something is floating behind them. The boss dropped a legendary artifact, Gapages Wings. The boots grant a permanent haste buff for a fraction of mana. The team's mobility just skyrocketed. The fighting spirit of the boss settles into Jared's left hand. He is now a walking weapon of mass destruction. He points at the ceiling and unleashes a double transcendence fireball. The pillar of flame illuminates the entire cavern. The raw power is staggering. The raid is officially cleared. 0 casualties, maximum loot. The team heads for the extraction shortcut, their bags heavy with high-tier artifacts. Mia assumes the next team to run the dungeon will use the path they carved out. Jared stops at the passage exit. He refuses to leave an open door for rival hunters. He orders the team to collapse the tunnel behind them. No free rides for anyone else. Back at the estate, the loot is distributed. They also acquired Gapage's purified spirit, a pure energy core that can only be implanted into animals. Every team member earned a custom 6-star artifact. The raid was a historic haul. Jared sits in his study, recalling the sheer force of the transcendence magic. He examines Mudidus's worn-out staff. It allows him to fully recover his mana once a day. With this staff, he can cast triple transcendence spells without draining his core. He remembers getting the staff during his first rescue mission. A small brown cat jumps onto the sofa, demanding his attention. The stray wandered into the mansion a few days ago to escape the monsoon rains. The maid explains the cat seems to have claimed the estate as its territory. Hayes begs to keep it. Jared agrees and pulls out the purified spirit orb. He presses the glowing green core directly into the cat's chest. The spirit settles. The cat gains the ability to detect dark energy and cast buffs. The cat opens its mouth and demands a real name in perfect human speech. Jared stares at the talking feline, formulating an answer. He decides to name the magical beast Terry. Hayes claps her hands, entirely unfazed by the talking animal. The scene cuts sharply to a rain-soaked village. The Optatio River is flooding. A masked priest from the Umber Church stands by the town well. He orders his men to drop heavy, blood-stained sacks into the drinking water. The sacks contain rotting corpses, weighed down with stones to ensure they sink deep. The water turns toxic instantly. Anyone who drinks from it will contract a fatal waterborne disease. The priest laughs. The biological warfare is deployed perfectly. The plague will ravage the Malus, Benuso, and Sindarth kingdoms. At the exact same time, inside the Caribia territory, Jared examines a cursed red necklace looted from the raid. The artifact brainwashes the wearer into becoming a loyal minion of the Umber Church. He tosses the trash loot into a drawer. He refuses to let that kind of dark magic see the light of day. He looks out the window at the endless rain. The Great Lord title protects his lands from the floods. A knock on the study door interrupts his thoughts. Valdez enters the study early in the morning. He mentions the religious doctrine claiming Caribia Caribbean is safe from disasters. Jared listens carefully to the minister's pitch. Valdez suggests filming Jared offering prayers for the safety of the citizens. The script is already approved by the local temple. The set is ready. Jared smiles. The minister's sheer speed and manipulation skills are terrifying. They begin filming immediately. Jared knows a true leader relies on the sinister talents of his subordinates when necessary. The video is broadcast across the territory. The citizens watch in awe. The film is a masterpiece of emotional manipulation. The people genuinely believe Jared's prayers are holding the floods back. Citizen loyalty maxes out. The golden age begins, doubling Caribbean's production capacity. Outside his borders, the neighboring kingdoms are drowning in floodwaters and lethal epidemics. A sick girl begs for water, entirely unaware her well is poisoned. But inside Caribbean, a rainbow breaks through the clouds. The contrast is absolute. 1 week later, the underground alchemy lab. Isabel stares at a row of glowing blue vials she has never seen before. Jared introduces the master potion, a universal cure for the waterborne plague ravaging the continent. She looks at him in sheer disbelief. He brushes off the praise. He has been planning this since the start. She asks why he needs her charm magic to place a minor curse on the cure. He explains the raw potion is too potent for normal human bodies. The curse acts as a delimiter, watering down the effect. He notices the purple purification ring on her finger. She admits the artifact is suppressing her dark, violent urges. The constant anger is gone. She blushes, admitting she feels much more comfortable around him now. Jared panics internally. He does not want a romance subplot. He has an empire to run. He tries to let her down gently. She snaps, furious that he assumed she was confessing to him. She glares at him and returns to work, slapping the delimiter curses onto the vials. The stockpile grows into the thousands. The cure is ready. Jared smiles. The ultimate bargaining chip is secure. Heavy footsteps echo outside the lab. Hayes hammers on the door. She bursts in, frantic. The ambassadors from the Malice and Benuso kingdoms have arrived. Inside the VIP parlor, the ambassador of Malice glares across the room. The ambassador of Benuso glares right back. The two rival nations are caught in a desperate race for survival. They note the sheer luxury of the Caribbean palace, realizing this territory is wealthier than they assumed. Jared enters the room, wearing a polite, unreadable smile. Both ambassadors scramble to speak first, desperate to secure his favor. The briefing begins. The Aptatio River has flooded both their borders, but the real devastation is the plague spreading through their major cities. Casualties are mounting by the hour. The death toll is catastrophic. Jared sips his tea, pretending to consider their plight. The ambassadors admit they heard about the new cure through the mercenary network. Jared realizes Hayes leaked the information perfectly on schedule. They aren't asking for aid. They want to buy the potion outright. The Benuso ambassador slams his fist on the table, offering unlimited gold for the entire supply. Jared agrees to sell without hesitation. The production lines are already running. The diplomats bow deeply, relieved to have secured their salvation. Jared walks the halls later that evening, exhausted by the political theater. Hayes interrupts him again. A third envoy has arrived. Princess Myra of the Sindarth Kingdom has come personally. Jared meets her in the parlor. She looks terrible. She stares into her tea, the weight of a dying kingdom resting on her shoulders. Jared tells her to drink. She needs her strength to lead her people out of this hell. He notices her appearance. The poised royal he met before is gone, replaced by a desperate survivor. He asks for a detailed report on the outbreak. She explains the reality of the situation. Sindarth prepared for the floods. They evacuated the vulnerable and secured the high ground, but the epidemic broke containment in areas totally unaffected by the river water. She investigated the clean wells used by the refugees. They found the rotting corpses strapped to stones at the bottom. She knows this wasn't a natural disaster. It was a targeted biological attack by the Umber Church. The Mad Priest Clues is leading the terror campaign. The cult is punishing the kingdom for purging their influence during the Civil War. Jared doesn't waste time with sympathy. He tells her he has the cure. Myra practically leaps out of her chair, begging to buy whatever he has available. She demands he sell her the remaining stockpile to save her people. Jared promises her 70% of his total secured supply. Myra freezes. What about the other two kingdoms? He smirks. The Malice and Benuso ambassadors only bought enough to cover 30% of the supply. They only intend to cure their nobles and let the commoners rot. Jared refuses to play by their rules. Princess Myra lowers her head, overwhelmed by the gesture. Jared hands over the cure without hesitation, issuing strict orders to secure the affected wells immediately. The royal treasury opens, showering the duke with a small fortune in gold coins. To meet the massive continental demand, he sets up an automated alchemy lab. He pushes his physical limits, running manual brewing cycles 24 hours a day. He turns to find Isabel slumped over the counter, snoring softly. Tears streak her face as the nightmare of her past life bleeds into her dreams. He reaches out to comfort her, but pauses. He gently drapes his own vest over her shoulders to stave off the cold draft. Her red eyes flutter open. She jolts awake, flustered by the sudden warmth. She snaps at him, fangs bared, accusing him of taking advantage of her while she slept. Jared just smiles smiles and apologizes for working her to the bone. He offers a hand to help her up. He reminds her that this exhausting grind is going to save countless innocent lives. She grumbles, admitting he makes a solid point. Aki bursts into the room, practically glowing with financial success. The demand is astronomical. Even the isolated dark elves of Tatar Island want a supply. Jared praises his financial manager. Caribia's treasury just quintupled. The system verifies the massive upgrade. The master potion brewery just hit level 100. The automated system runs on a high-grade dark spirit stone, rendering manual labor obsolete. Jared smirks, glad he no longer has to torture his favorite demon with overtime. Out in the harsh wilderness, a relentless monsoon hammers the mountain pass. A line of sick, desperate refugees marches through the mud, seeking a safe haven. Back inside the warm estate, a knock rattles the study door. Jared welcomes Isabel inside. She stands by the door, looking unusually serious. She refuses her 9% cut of the massive potion profits. Jared is stunned. Turning down a mountain of gold goes against every instinct she has. She explains she wants to trade the money for a massive political favor instead. She wants official backing to establish a sorcerer's guild. Jared considers the tactical advantage. Sorcerers provide incredible debuffs in warfare. She holds up her purification ring, setting strict terms for the recruits. Anyone lacking self-control gets denied entry on the spot. She glares at him, determined to forge a force that can protect his empire. She swears on her honor to manage the guild members with an iron fist. She wants to prove her existence holds real value to his kingdom. Jared agrees to fund the project without hesitation. He stares deep into her red eyes, delivering a razor-sharp warning. If her sorcerers ever touch black magic, he will execute them himself. Isabel does not flinch. She hates the dark church more than anyone breathing. Jared breaks the tension with a terrible joke about taking her pants off to clean her up. The ridiculous comment shatters the serious atmosphere instantly. The guild will unite the surviving sorcerers who fled the Transilia massacre. August 19th. The true scale of the crisis reveals itself in the canyon. Raquise stares at the endless line of desperate people flooding into the valley. Jared clutches his cat, Terry, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of arrivals. The refugees look awful, fleeing the plague-ridden Malice and Benuso kingdoms. He curses the rival kings for abandoning their own citizens to rot. He turns to his magical pet. He commands Terry to scan the crowd for anyone radiating dark energy. Jared pivots to his commanders to finalize the absorption strategy. He plans to funnel the massive population into the undeveloped Sanar district. Julian looks terrified, realizing Jared orchestrated the potion sales to fund this exact moment. A massive population spike requires a massive economic anchor to sustain it. Julian warns that the rapid influx could destabilize the entire region. Every previous ruler ignored this wasteland for a reason. Jared pulls his ultimate cheat code. He intends to turn the dirt into a holy land. If he designates the zone a religious sanctuary, pilgrims and wealth will flood the borders naturally. Terry returns from his scouting mission, meowing a warning. Inside the command tent, the council gathers around the tactical map. Jared points to Raquise. He needs the chief guard to act as the enforcer. He implements the carrot and the stick policy. Support the genuine refugees, but crush anyone exploiting the chaos. Raquise nods, understanding the heavy burden. Jared grants him the authority to execute criminals without a trial. He dismisses the commander, turning to Julian and Aki for the logistics. They will handle the massive financial operation. He authorizes 20-year housing loans to keep the new citizens anchored. He implements sweeping tax exemptions for any crop cultivated on the barren land. And he guarantees fair wages for construction labor to prevent an uprising. Down in the refugee camp, a scarred man grabs a woman's coin pouch. An Egregio guard draws a blade, halting the thief in his tracks. The thief begs for his life with steel resting an inch from his throat. Jared stands on a cliff overlooking the sprawling tents. He knows incorporating this many outsiders could shatter the surrounding kingdom's balance of power. If he fails, Caribia becomes a war zone. Terry nudges his leg, reporting the dark energy target is on the move. Jared offers a treat, praising the feline radar system. The suspect is a white-haired man wearing a red mask. The target slipped past the guards and headed for a hidden mountain cave. Jared's eyes widen. He recognizes the description. Clues, the third in command of the Umbra Church. In the original game timeline, Clues was a nightmare boss who required a full raid team to suppress. But this is 9 years early. The villain hasn't reached his peak strength yet. His self-confidence spikes as the golden flame illuminates his palm. He follows the cat's directions to a dark opening in the rock face. He uses stealth magic to approach without a sound. He steps lightly, anticipating a brutal ambush. He peeks around the jagged stone, bracing for a fight. He locks his grip on his staff. Terry counts down the entry. Jared steps into the cave, only to find it deserted. A crude drawing of Jared's face is pinned to the wall with a blood-stained dagger. Clues left a mocking message. He knew he was being tracked the entire time. Meanwhile, inside the quarantine zone, Jared checks on the refugees. A feverish woman groans, feeling a sudden rush of energy returning to her limbs. Hayes offers to link her healing magic with another priest to ease the burden. She boasts that she could cast basic healing spells for an entire year without sweating. everything. Jared approaches the medical tent to check on his maid. Two new recruits, Maru and Mary, beg the Duke for a chance to work in the ward. Jared looks down at them, recognizing their potential. Maru possesses A-rank general medicine. Mary brings A-rank psychology skills. They aren't fighters, but they are the perfect supply chain control tower for a massive camp. He lays down strict sterilization rules for entering the magic circles. The siblings celebrate their new jobs, eager to repay the Duke's kindness. Hayes watches them run off, thrilled to have competent reinforcements. Jared praises her relentless dedication to the sick. She beams, ecstatic that her divine power actually means something here. He tells her he wants to see her push her limits even further. She blushes, practically vibrating with motivation. He remembers she was just a clumsy maid 19 months ago. Now, she operates like an elite healer despite never having a formal awakening. She looks up, sensing a shift in his demeanor. He mutters about wanting to give her a proper reward for carrying the medical load alone. Hayes waves her hands, insisting that serving him is reward enough. Jared steps closer, closing the distance. She stares up at him, her huge eyes wide with confusion. He leans in and kisses her. Time stops for the little maid. The system goes haywire. A cascade of blue windows floods his vision. He reads the alerts in sheer disbelief. The emotional shock shattered her psychological limiters instantly. He realizes a single kiss just triggered her first, second, and third awakening simultaneously. Her brain overloads from the massive surge of mana, and she slumps forward. He catches her before she hits the dirt, her eyes swirling. She sleeps soundly against his chest, her loyalty metric permanently maxed out. He carries her into the tent, ordering Mary to let the exhausted girl rest. He steps out into the night. It is time to execute the Holy Land scheme. He needs the platinum holy grail of Radius. The relic is buried on Tatar Island, deep inside Dark Elf territory. He sets out alone under the cover of darkness. He grips a specialized artifact in his pocket, a trump card for the coming heist. He vanishes into the treeline, moving toward the coast. Before leaving, he planted a massive lie at the Caribbean Palace. High Priest Neod paces the chapel, visibly stressed. Saint Luna asks what has him so rattled. He admits Duke Jared's recent claim sounds like pure delusion. 2 days ago, Jared burst into the chapel, ordering them to lower their voices. He promised to deliver the lost Holy Grail from the Baron Sanar district. The High Priest couldn't comprehend how a secular lord could track down a lost divine relic. But if the claim is true, the religious implications are staggering. Finding the Grail forces the church to unanimously declare the area a holy place. Saint Luna clasps her hands, desperate to see the legendary cup with her own eyes. Neod orders the archives brought up. He needs to prepare for a miracle. Back in the present, Jared glides over the freezing ocean using wind magic. He pushes through the exhaustion, driven by the sheer profit potential of a fabricated holy land. The Radius Church is desperate for a relic to prove their legitimacy against the dark faiths. The Umbra and Keiko churches boast powerful artifacts like the Black Shroud and the Keiko Skull. Delivering the Grail will make him a literal savior in their eyes. He mutters a quick apology to the god Radius for rigging the system. He lands on the rocky shores of Tatar Island. The dense, hostile jungle of the Dark Elves stretches out before him. In the lore, this race sided with the demon army during the Great War, but Jared knows they were forced into that alliance by greedy human kings who tried to steal their magic engineering. He slips through the brush, determined not to repeat history's mistakes. He approaches a massive glowing tree at the center of the island. He touches the sticky, luminescent sap running down the bark. This is the spot. He pulls a shovel from his inventory and gets to work. He unearths the platinum holy grail, its silver surface unblemished by the dirt. A series of system windows chime, confirming the legendary acquisition. A sudden rustling in the canopy breaks his focus. He turns sharply, staring into the dark leaves. A massive, gray mechanical golem hovers in the air above him. The Tatronex, a pilotable combat suit representing the peak of dark elf engineering. He hides behind the glowing tree, watching the unmanned machine patrol the sector. It operates on an automated test flight, completely devoid of a pilot. A wicked grin spreads across his face. Stealing this prototype will jump his combat power by several magnitudes. He casts mirror image, creating a perfect decoy to draw the machine's sensors. The suit's red eye flares, registering a kill command. Jared watches from the shadows, tracking the flight pattern. The machine dives toward the decoy at breakneck speed. He waits for the precise microsecond. He launches himself out of the canopy directly above the plummeting golem. The machine turns, detecting the real threat too late. Jared lands right behind its massive shoulders. The golem sparks, trying to recalibrate its attack vector. Jared punches the steel plating with an open palm. His storage ring flashes, engulfing the colossal machine in a dimensional vacuum. The massive golem disappears. The heist is flawless. He lands gracefully in the clearing, the billion gold prototype secured in his inventory. He opens the system menu to check the Tanex options. The stat sheet reveals enhanced maneuverability, magic cannons, and heavy spirit stone reinforcement. He knows Sabio, the original engineer, will be furious when he realizes his masterpiece is gone. He brushes the dirt off his boots. 2 legendary acquisitions in one night. He casts his wind magic and launches himself back toward the mainland. A female dark elf pushes through the bushes just just seconds too late. She stares at the empty clearing, a terrifying smile spreading across her face. She licks her fangs, deeply impressed by the human who outsmarted their security grid. She sprints into the woods, tracing his residual mana signature. Another elf questions what the human was doing digging in the dirt. She pulls out a green tracking device, syncing with the stolen suit's telemetry. She realizes the human must possess at least Class 5 magic to bypass the security. She bounces with excitement, thrilled to finally have a worthy research subject. Miles away, Jared glides over the ocean, safe from pursuit. The system tallies his reward for uncovering the Holy Grail. 100 divine power. He checks his new stats, amazed by the massive holy multiplier. The divine power acts as a raw amplifier against cursed enemies. Adding 100 points doubles his total magic damage. The scaling is exponential. At 900 points, his output would be 10 times normal. With the stolen suit and the new buff, he can easily crush a Class 7 mage. He sets his sights on the Malice and Benuso kingdoms. They are next on the chopping block. But first, he needs to secure the refugee district. He approaches the Caribbean border as the sun rises over the mountains. The ocean waves crash against the shore. The worst part of the journey is over. At Lake Margarita, a frantic shout breaks the morning silence. High Priest Neode scrambles out of the archives, his robes in disarray. Saint Luna runs alongside him, her eyes wide with desperate hope. She spots the young duke standing by the water. Neode demands to know if the miracle is real. The High Priest drops to his knees, screaming in pure religious ecstasy at the sight of the cup. They revere Jared as a divine representative sent by the god Radius. The collective awe in the air is suffocating. Jared awkwardly rubs his neck, asking them to dial the worship back a notch. He hands the grail over, claiming he simply unearthed what belonged to the church. Neode refuses to let the location remain a secret. Jared plays the humble lord, asking why the secrecy matters. Neode declares that the discovery forces the Transilia Empire to formally recognize this land. From this exact second forward, Lake Margarita is a certified holy place. He holds the grail up to the sunlight, marveling at its pristine condition. The surrounding priests sob, overwhelmed by the historical weight of the moment. They bow to the dirt, chanting blessings over the Duke of Caribia. Neode assures Jared that the Pope will grant him eternal glory for this deed. Jared laughs it off, playing the part of a pious servant perfectly. The system chimes. The Pope's remote blessing grants him another 50 divine power. Jared's eyes widen. He didn't expect a free stat boost from a political play. The High Priest promises to return to the district to build a grand temple. Jared bows, securing the alliance. The financial anchor is set. He pulls up his command interface to review the territory upgrades. The Sanar district officially evolves into the Sanar Holy Land, unlocking a specialized management window. The new stats reveal insane boosts to agriculture, commerce, and civilian loyalty. Jared stares at the golden screen, his heart hammering against his ribs. The Holy Land tag multiplies every single economic output in the region. He stands alone by the water, realizing this small victory is just the foundation of an empire. He looks up at the sky, thinking about the gods watching him from above. He knows his transmigration from an overworked corporate drone wasn't random. Some unseen deity pulled the strings to bring him here. He smirks. If the gods want a show, he will give them one that pays well. The refugee crisis that threatened to crush his borders has been weaponized into pure profit. He only has one loose end left to tie up. The red-masked fanatic who slipped through his fingers. Clues. The man foolish enough to pick a fight with a duke who holds grudges. Ella, the Egregio combat instructor, raises her glass to celebrate the Grail discovery. Jared notes she is the most devout believer he knows. She admits the god Radius gave her life meaning, which fuels her absolute hatred for the Dark Church. Jared listens quietly, letting her talk. She offers him a pour. He accepts, glad to share a drink with his top mercenary. He takes a sip and shifts the conversation to a heavier topic. Ella stares into her wine, her expression unreadable. She notes that their formal training contract expires in exactly 4 days. She downs the glass, admitting she got greedy trying to hoard a prodigy like Chloe. The gray elf possesses a terrifying natural instinct for combat. Jared lowers his glass, asking why she is giving up on the girl. Ella points a finger straight at him. She knows he can elevate Chloe higher than she ever could. Jared smiles, accepting the heavy responsibility of taking over the elf's training. Ella witnessed the explosive growth Chloe achieved after just 1 year of his brutal private lessons. As a martial artist, she refuses to anchor down a student who has outgrown her. Jared is genuinely moved by her unselfish dedication to the girl's future. Ella tops off her wine, waving away the sentimental atmosphere. Jared sets the bottle down. It is time for business. He needs her knights for a highly classified operation. He predicts a massive Umbra Church assault is imminent. Clues despises happiness. The new Holy Land designation guarantees he will attack the refugees. Ella grins, eager for a chance to slaughter her sworn enemies. She downs another glass and asks for the target's profile. Jared describes the white-haired archbishop in detail. Ella is stunned. Finding an archbishop requires infiltrating the deepest levels of their cult. Jared taps his chin, brushing off the impossibility of his intel. The Umbra Church is bleeding money. They need resources to fund their holy war. He drops a heavy sack of pure gold coins onto the table. The bait. Ella leans forward, her eyes gleaming with violent anticipation. He promises a total wipeout. Not a single cultist will leave the mountain alive. 2 days later, a heavily guarded convoy rolls through a narrow mountain pass. Wagons packed with master potions and raw materials trudge along the dirt road. Crates of purified spirit stones sit exposed under the sun. Sacks of grain and unrefined gold bars create a target too rich to ignore. Ella leads the vanguard on horseback, projecting total confidence. She touches the bandages on her face, wincing from the bruises she took during a recent spar. She admits she severely underestimated the Duke's raw physical power. She realizes that if Jared fights seriously, even the terrifying Clues doesn't stand a chance. During their match, he unleashed an impossible 80-arrow magic missile barrage. The memory of that overwhelming magical pressure still gives her chills. She tightens her grip on the reins. Jared is a monster masquerading as a noble. She raises a fist, halting the convoy's advance. She orders the knights to accelerate. The kill zone is approaching. She scans the ridgeline, waiting for the ambush. The elite troops are fully armored, carrying the finest Caribbean steel. The Black Lion banner snaps in the wind, daring the cultists to strike. High above the wagons, Jared floats in the sky, cloaked by 5th-class invisibility magic. The spell drains his mana constantly, but the tactical vantage point is flawless. He glares down at the pass, ready to deliver a fatal message to the Dark Church. He packed the convoy with enough wealth to draw out an entire army. He prays Clues is arrogant enough to lead the assault personally. Down in the shadows, a massive armored cultist steps out of the rocks. The Black Death Demon, a high-ranking Umbra enforcer wrapped in thick metal plates. In the game, this brute became a raid boss after Clues' death. A scout screams from the ground. Shadows are pouring over the right ridge. Hundreds of masked cultists swarm down the cliffside, weapons drawn. A deafening explosion shatters the rear path. Massive boulders seal the convoy inside the canyon. Jared drops his invisibility, his eyes burning with lethal intent. He draws his staff. He refuses to let a single fanatic escape this valley. Clues stands on the high ground, laughing at the trapped knights. The white-haired archbishop assumes Jared walked blindly into his slaughter. He praises the Duke's bravery, entirely unaware he is the one standing in a cage. He commands his troops to charge, intending to execute the Duke first. He draws a jagged blade, promising to avenge his fallen subordinates. The masked cultists raise their spears, chanting their dark prayers. Jared scoffs at the theatrical villain dialogue. He points his staff forward, unleashing a hextuple transcendence magic missile. Jared smirks. This is the raw power of transcendence. The missiles rain down like a barrage of wind spears, tearing through the enemy lines. He follows up instantly, raising his left hand. A double transcendence lightning arrow crackles to life, flooding the canyon with purple electricity. The cultists burn alive, their bones flashing through their skin as the current roasts them. Clues stares in absolute horror as his vanguard evaporates in seconds. A charred corpse twitches in the dirt at the archbishop's feet. Jared lands cleanly, unfazed by the massacre he just orchestrated. He smiles at the trembling cult leader. He triggers his extreme regeneration skill, his eyes glowing with frantic madness. He wields a flesh dagger for critical strikes and the ring of absolute weakness to cripple his foes. Jared acknowledges the lethal artifact combination. He pivots smoothly, dodging the strike by a millimeter. Clues cackles, assuming the overwhelming numbers guarantee victory. Jared grins, launching himself backward. Clues prepares to rush in, thinking he has the upper hand. The archbishop triggers passive shadow clone, splitting his body into identical copies. Jared recognizes the unique ability. Cannot be dispelled by standard magic. He locks his eyes onto the glowing red ring. He wants that artifact intact. The clones surround him, blades raised for the kill. A second dagger slashes down. He pivots smoothly. Clues assumes the overwhelming numbers guarantee victory. Jared activates his teleportation skill. He vanishes from the kill circle and reappears directly behind the real Clues. His gauntlets clamp down on the archbishop's shoulders. He restrains Clues effortlessly, pinning his arms to his sides. Clues chokes on his own blood, horrified that his main body was found instantly. Jared reveals the trap. He saturated the battlefield with invisible glitter dust before the fight began. Shadow clones cannot replicate magical residue. The real body was practically glowing. Clues grinds his teeth, realizing he was outplayed on a microscopic level. Jared unleashes Transcendence Telekinesis directly into the archbishop's spine. He cranks the gravity up, launching the fanatic into the sky with bone-crushing force. He explains the physics of the spell. 8 GS of pure gravitational acceleration. The pressure alone is enough to rupture internal organs. He holds up the red ring. He stole it right off Clues' finger before launching him. He slips the ring of absolute weakness onto his own hand. Clues hits the dirt hard, his hand empty and his trump card gone. Jared stands over him, him, asking if the villain has any final words. Clues pants heavily, his mind fracturing under the sheer weight of the magic. He demands to know where a human acquired such ridiculous power. He accuses Jared of making a dark contract with an unknown deity. Jared slaps him across the face, disgusted by the coward's logic. Clues snarls. He refuses to die on his knees. Clues tightens his grip on the glowing stellad dagger. Dark, corrupted mana erupts from his body, turning the air toxic. He triggers a physical transformation, his muscles bulging as his skin turns gray. His body swells into a massive, hulking monstrosity fueled by black magic. The beast roars, towering over the young duke. He charges, driven entirely by feral bloodlust. Jared raises his hand, calmly tracing a complex magical seal in the air. 10 glowing dimension doors materialize in a massive circle around him. Clues realizes the scale of the spell too late. Jared vows to break the church's enthusiasm right here, right now. A massive sphere of fire ignites above his head. Double flame arrow. Clues stares in absolute shock. The spell is a completely foreign variant. He braces himself, completely trapped inside the kill zone. The flames funnel into the dimension doors, amplifying their velocity. Clues screams as the concentrated fire incinerates his mutated flesh. He refuses to believe a Class 5 mage possesses this much raw output. He tries to push through the flames, intending to take Jared down with him. Another wave of fire blasts from the portals, pushing him back. The kinetic force behind the flames is staggering. Clues burns alive, his extreme regeneration struggling to keep his organs intact. He uses a desperate short-range teleport to escape the firestorm. He materializes outside the circle, his body smoking and charred black. He grits his bloody teeth, plotting a final suicide strike. He tries to move, but his leg refuses to respond. He is completely paralyzed, frozen mid-stride. Jared walks out of the smoke, his telekinesis pinning the monster to the earth. He smiles warmly, explaining the gravity well holding Clues in place. He charges one final fire arrow. The blast hits Clues square in the chest, blowing him off his feet. The mutated giant crashes into the dirt, bleeding out rapidly. He cannot comprehend the mathematical impossibility of the damage. Even a Class 6 mage shouldn't hit this hard. He realizes Jared's mana pool must be completely limitless. Jared approaches, fully equipped with Delruk's bracelet and Mutadus's staff. He activates the stolen ring of absolute weakness, aiming it at its former owner. Clues panics as his defensive stats plummet to absolute zero. The transformation drops. His body deflates back to his scrawny human form. He screams for a defensive barrier, completely stripped of his power. Jared mocks his stupidity and thrusts his hand forward. The artisan magic tool sinks deep into flesh. Clues stares down at the blade embedded in his chest. A tool made of stellad. Jared grins. The carving knife was designed to cut through dense spirit stones. Against a body with zero defense, it slices through bone like warm butter. Clues coughs up a massive surge of dark blood, the fatal wound secured. Jared twists the knife, ensuring maximum internal damage. He pulls the dagger free, leaving the fanatic to bleed out in the dirt. He executes a clean slash across the archbishop's face, destroying the red mask. He glares down at the ruined villain, listing the countless innocent lives lost to his plagues. Clues chokes on his own blood, laughing weakly at the Duke's self-righteous speech. He admits if he had known Jared was this strong, he never would have engaged. Jared points the blade at his throat, promising to eradicate his head and scatter his ashes. He vows to let the furious public trample over his remains. Clues finds the threat hilarious. Venting anger on a corpse changes nothing. Jared lowers his blade, his expression shifting to terrifying calm. He kneels beside the dying fanatic, placing a hand over the fatal wound. He casts Transcendence Heal, flooding Clues' body with restorative magic. The Archbishop demands to know why he is being saved. Jared grabs him by the hair, his eyes burning with pure malice. He promises to keep the villain alive just long enough to torture him endlessly. He unleashes another wave of brutal pain, immediately followed by another healing spell. Clues wails in agony as his nervous system shatters under the endless loop of death and revival. He begs for permission to die, his mind completely broken by the horrific torture. Jared tosses a recording crystal onto the dirt, demanding a full confession. The absolute terror in his eyes is permanently documented. Jared stands over him, leaning on his staff. The confession is secured. Clues curses the Duke with his dying breath, swearing the Umber Church will avenge him. Jared grins. He welcomes the retaliation. He grabs the white hair tight and drives the blade straight down. A final, sickening crunch echoes through the canyon as the head separates from the shoulders. Jared pulls his blade free. The third in command of the Umber Church is dead. A flock of ravens scatters into the red sunset. A string of level-up notifications confirms the massive boss kill. He tosses the corpse into his dimensional storage ring. He intends to mount the head later. He wipes the blood from his cheek, completely unfazed by the execution. He vaults over the rocky ridge, rejoining his knights on the front line. Ella watches him drop back into the fight, absolutely awestruck. The Duke doesn't need backup. He is a walking natural disaster. He carves through the remaining cultists with terrifying speed. The Egrisio knights cheer, realizing their lord just single-handedly killed a legendary monster. They tighten their grip on their swords, inspired by the overwhelming unsettling display of power. Clu's remaining zealots freeze as they realize their leader is dead. Panic erupts across the battlefield. The fanatical morale completely shatters. Ella adjusts her glasses, amazed the young noble actually pulled it off. Jared levels his staff at the fleeing mob, refusing to accept their surrender. He declares their sins cannot be washed away with anything less than blood. The masked cultists stagger backward, cornered against the canyon walls. He ignites another massive magic circle, bathing the pass in red light. The zealots scream as the final strike descends. He vanishes into a blur of motion, executing the flamboyant dance of the dagger. The lightning storm engulfs the remaining cultists, severing them into pieces. A massive system window confirms the complete annihilation. He earns the 1000/ title. His discerning eyes upgrade to triple tier, unlocking hidden artifact details. He stares at his palm. The legendary Demon's Play artifact is officially his. The legendary Demon's Play artifact demands a staggering price to unlock its true power. 1,000 human lives. A breathless knight rushes into the clearing to report to the Duke. Behind him, Ella approaches with her squad, visibly shaken by the aftermath of the battle. She stares at the young lord, unable to comprehend how he slaughtered an entire Umbra Church ambush alone. Jared flashes a polite smile. He brushes off the praise, attributing his success to standard skill usage. He states the obvious reality of the engagement. The raw power gap between him and Clu's made the fight a foregone conclusion. The execution creates a massive historical shift in the Continental War timeline. Ella looks down at the severed head wrapped tight in blood-stained cloth. She thanks Jared, her voice heavy with immense gratitude. Eliminating the Dark Church's archbishop lifts a massive burden off the entire Radius faction. Miles away, an antique shop stands quiet in the evening shadows. Inside the private parlor, a figure cloaked in heavy black armor descends the stairs. Linksna traces her lip, amused by the dramatic entrance. She calls him Black Demon. He accepts the title without complaint. She finds the alias ridiculous and demands to know his real name. He ignores the provocation. He prefers the consistency of the shadows. He drops the intelligence report without preamble. Clu's is dead. Linksna already knows. The execution sent immediate shockwaves through the underground network. A video of the arrogant archbishop begging and repenting for his sins is circulating across the entire continent. She blames the disaster on Clu's massive ego and reckless planning. Black Demon questions the status of the remaining zealots. The surviving faction surrendered instantly, a predictable collapse for a group ruled exclusively by fear. Linksna traces her fingers through the air, acting as a puppet master to the chaos. Black Demon changes the subject. He refuses the empty position of vice president. She stares at him. She prefers operating from the shadows anyway. He stands over her, his massive armor imposing. Leading the Black Division already stretches his focus to the limit. He accepts her decision and pivots to their new primary objective. He wants all outside operations halted. The Dark Church will focus entirely on investigating Jared. The Radius Church's official declaration of the Sanar Holy Land changes the political landscape permanently. Linksna agrees, though she admits her own life feels worthless in the grand scheme of the war. She wonders if a god actually exists to justify all the blood spilled in the Dark Church's name. Black Demon notes that belief dictates reality. She blushes, caught off guard by his sudden, uncharacteristic insight. He turns his back, warning her not to look for him until his investigation on Jared concludes. Linksna scoffs at the dismissal. She has her own priorities for tomorrow. She plans to raid Spider Queen Morgina's dungeon. She smirks, anticipating a joint operation with the Red Queen. Black Demon warns her to be careful. The Red Queen hides lethal secrets. As a pillar of the Umbra Church, Linksna cannot afford careless mistakes. She waves off the lecture, annoyed by the constant nagging. Alone in the dark, her expression shifts to pure, focused malice. Jared. She promises to carve him apart. Back at the Caribia estate, the young lord scrolls through a mountain of system notifications detailing massive shipment logistics. A specific title alert catches his immediate attention. A floating parchment materializes in his study, dropping from the digital interface. He grips the rough paper, a map to Tristis Island. The isolated landmass sits far off the western coast of the Nas continent. It holds the notorious Grand Labyrinth of Nas, the ultimate challenge for any ambitious player. He places the map on his desk, his mind racing with the strategic possibilities. In his past life, players spent years trying to break this specific dungeon's mechanics. The labyrinth descends deep underground, built by developers who loved punishing structure. Torches line the endless spiral staircase leading into the dark. A glowing dimensional door guards the entrance, radiating pure purple energy. The portal changes color every 60 seconds, randomizing the entry zone. A green portal dictates one specific, randomized path. Preparing for a specific layout is impossible without pure luck. The shifting colors turn every run into a lethal gamble. Jared holds the parchment tight. This document provides the exact timing sequence for every portal variation. The developer notes specify that the labyrinth belongs to no single nation. Any country attempting to monopolize it faces continental war. He places the map down. The raid must wait. He needs to check on a specific gray elf first. In the manor hallway, Chloe paces back and forth, visibly anxious. Hayes spots her hovering hovering outside the study door. The little maid asks how long she has been waiting. Chloe stammers, unable to hide her nerves. Hayes urges her to go inside. The Duke hates waiting for important meetings. Chloe voices her deepest fear. She expects Jared to banish her from the estate. She stares at the floor. She still has so much left to learn from his impossible strength. Hayes laughs, calling the anxiety ridiculous. The maid tells the elf to speak her mind without hiding a single truth. Hayes sprints down the hall to practice her own magic, leaving Chloe alone. Chloe stares at her hands, gathering her courage. She pushes the heavy wooden door open. Inside the study, Jared asks if she completed her psychological warfare reading. She nods, keeping her answers clipped and formal. He jokes about calling her a yes bot if she refuses to form an actual sentence. Chloe manages a small smile, declining the nickname. Jared leans forward, dropping the humor. The real meeting starts now. He needs her potential. He needs her raw talent anchored to his manner. Chloe realizes he is making a long-term offer despite knowing her origins. He declares his ultimate ambition, conquering the grand labyrinth of Nas. He needs her blade for that specific raid. Ella and Hayes both warned him about the elf's impending departure back to her clan. Chloe clenches her fists, assuming he is just trying to raise her mercenary price. He smiles. He genuinely just wants her to stay. He extends his hand. He needs her strength for the coming war. She stares at him, stunned that a human noble values her this much. She lowers her head, fighting the emotional weight of his trust. Jared watches her hesitate, knowing she carries a heavy burden. He lists her unmatchable skills: stealth, assassination, camouflage. She is irreplaceable. He drops the final incentive, a promise to find her a teacher far superior to Ella. He swears on his honor to deliver within 1 year, someone who can push her combat instincts to the absolute peak. Formido, a legendary 70-year-old apex assassin. In the original timeline, Formido died of disease before the Great War even began. Jared intends to recruit him before that happens, offering Chloe a masterclass in lethality. Chloe mentions her 2 older brothers. Her chance of ruling the elves as queen is 0. Jared's eyes narrow. He knows the game lore perfectly. Both of her brothers will die brutal deaths in the coming years. Chloe stands up abruptly, her decision made. Jared waits, letting her process the weight of the moment. She agrees to stay for exactly 1 year. She looks at him with newfound determination. Jared pumps his fist. The legendary stealth vanguard is officially secured. He promises to push her limits higher than she ever thought possible. Later, inside the council room, Jared reviews the mining reports. Keldia, a metal infinitely stronger than standard steel. He runs the economic math against the rival Benuso and Malice kingdoms. The frozen ports during winter cripple the neighboring territories' supply chains. He grins, recalling the character lore that will give Caribia a massive industrial advantage. He intends to weaponize his exclusive game knowledge to dominate the global market. The Dark Faiths operate under the assumption they have time to prepare. Jared plans to crush that assumption by accelerating his industrial growth. Valdez stands across the table, taking meticulous notes on the Duke's vision. Jared dictates his policy. War must never require unconditional civilian sacrifice. Valdez listens, genuinely impressed by the young lord's moral framework. Jared asks if the minister is just flattering him. Valdez answers with complete sincerity. He does not waste breath on empty praise. Jared accepts the answer, eager to see how Valdez spins the public narrative. The minister writes the words down verbatim, planning the propaganda distribution. The system registers the minister's devotion. Valdez hits his primary awakening. Valdez closes his notebook and reports the current market status. The master potions are dominating the southern markets due to the early monsoon. Jared nods. The financial anchor is performing perfectly. Valdez slides a classified folder across the desk. Naval intelligence on the Benuso and Malice kingdoms. Jared opens the file, reviewing the detailed personnel lists. Both kings view their navies as massive financial drains and treat their admirals with open contempt. The intelligence paints a clear picture of 2 crumbling military structures. The disgruntled officers just need a spark to abandon their burning ships. A coordinated defection would cripple both rival nations overnight. Jared reads the file. They just need to provide a sturdy ship for the traitors to board. The door slams open. Aki bursts through, completely out of breath. The scout mission was a success. Asura is at the Plenus mine. Jared demands absolute confirmation. He cannot afford to chase a ghost. Aki screams, offended that Jared would ever doubt the intelligence network. Jared pulls the map, pinpointing the Keldia region. Asura, the future god of metallurgy, the man who will forge the ultimate weapons for the Great War. High above the clouds, Jared glides through the night sky wearing the stolen Tanex suit. Aki clings to his back, marveling at the sheer speed of the mechanical golem. Jared laughs, enjoying the absolute freedom of the flight system. The suit suit sensors track the ground below as they approach the mining sector. He jokes about using the suit for casual transport. Aki brings the focus back to the mission. The Plenus mine operates on pure corruption. Every guard and manager demands a bribe just to look the other way. Positions are bought and sold like cattle. Aki complains about the physical strain of the merchant work, demanding an exercise period. Jared ignores the whining, running a diagnostic check on the Tanex armor. He verifies the data collection systems. The suit is learning his movement patterns. Aki slips, nearly falling off the slick metal plating. Jared catches the financial manager just in time. He notes Aki's surprising weight, mistaking the heavy travel gear for body fat. Aki snaps, furious at the casual insult. The Plenus mine sits carved into a massive rocky cliffside. Inside the sweltering forge, men hammer away at glowing iron. Asura strikes the anvil, his muscles corded from years of relentless labor. In the original lore, he discovers Keldia by accident 3 years into the war. His weapons gave the human alliance their only advantage against the Demon King's army. Jared intends to accelerate that timeline by a full decade. The Tanex suit touches down near the mine entrance. Aki adjusts their hood, ready to negotiate the bribes. Jared promises to put Aki on a diet when they return to Caribia. Aki punches the metal armor, furious at the constant weight jokes. Jared demands silence. The infiltration begins now. He tosses a gold coin to the armored gatekeepers, buying their immediate compliance. Deeper inside the mine, the massive superintendent Buku spots Asura near the coal carts. Buku screams, accusing the blacksmith of wasting kingdom resources. Asura takes a brutal kick to the chest. The fat supervisor stomps on the fallen man's face, driving his boot into the dirt. He rants about his own precarious position, terrified of losing his job. He draws a heavy braided whip, intending to make a public example of the blacksmith. Buku smiles, enjoying the absolute power he holds over the workers. The leather cracks across Asura's back with sickening force. The blacksmith coughs up blood, his hands trembling against the floor. He begs for mercy, explaining he was only researching with discarded impurities. Buku doesn't care. He promises death. A dead blacksmith is just a paperwork error to him. He grabs a heavy meat cleaver from a nearby table. Asura scrambles backward, realizing the supervisor is entirely serious. Buku brings the blade down toward Asura's neck. A metal gauntlet intercepts the strike, locking onto the fat man's wrist. Buku's eyes bulge as the momentum halts instantly. Jared steps out of the shadows, his grip like a steel vice. Buku shakes in terror, intimidated by the towering figure in the green cloak. Jared claims he is a relative of the bleeding blacksmith. The fat supervisor tries to pull his arm free, completely outmatched. Buku snarls, declaring absolute ownership over every worker in his territory. He threatens to call the kingdom guards if Jared doesn't back down. Jared drops a heavy sack of pure gold onto the dirt. Buku freezes, his eyes locked on the leather bag. 3 years' worth of salary sits in the dirt. Jared pulls a second sack from his subspace ring. Aki steps forward, holding 3 more heavy bags of coin. The fat man practically drools, his entire demeanor changing. Jared dictates the terms. He wants official termination papers for Asura immediately. He promises another 9 years of salary if the paperwork is stamped in the next 5 minutes. Buku scrambles to obey, abandoning his ego for the massive payout. Asura stares up at his savior, confused by the relative lie and the glowing magic. Jared kneels down, casting a healing spell over the blacksmith's wounds. He assures Asura that this kind of abuse ends today. The green light closes the deep cuts on the blacksmith's back. The system window confirms Asura's insane latent stats. S-rank metallurgy. Jared smiles. The future legend lives up to the code. Asura addresses his savior with deep respect. The blacksmith notes the noble mannerisms beneath the traveler's cloak. Aki rolls their eyes. Jared isn't exactly subtle. Jared drops the humble act. He makes his pitch. He wants Asura to pack his family and leave the mine forever. The blacksmith flinches, terrified of Buku's retaliation. Jared reveals he already secured the official dismissal papers. He drops his hood. The Duke of Caribia stands revealed in the dirt. Jared extends a formal invitation to his massive estate. The humble blacksmith lowers his head, overwhelmed by the sudden royal attention. He cannot comprehend why a great lord traveled this far for a common worker. Jared raises 3 fingers, 3 absolute promises to secure his loyalty. First, a world-class smithy equipped with the finest tools in the north. Asura gapes at the offer, his jaw practically hitting the floor. Second, unlimited access to magical forging equipment. He holds up a glowing purple magic stone, proving his own arcane credentials. Third, a permanent, massive estate for Asura's entire family to live in comfort. The blacksmith stammers, unable to process the sheer generosity. Jared frames the offer as an investment. He needs Asura to research a specific metal. He assures the man this new material will change the entire foundation of warfare. He draws a refined Keldia blade from his inventory and hands it over. Asura inspects the weapon, his eyes widening at the impossible density. He asks permission for a field test. Jared steps back, giving the blacksmith room to work. Asura grips the hilt, preparing to strike a heavy anvil block. He swings the Keldia blade full force against the stone. The rock splits clean in half. The blacksmith stammers, stares, unable to comprehend the metallurgy behind the strike. He realizes the massive production implications of a metal this strong. Keldia rests on an entirely different level of structural integrity. Asura declares the blade revolutionary. Jared places a hand on his chest. He needs this man's genius to mass-produce it. Asura stares at the flawless blade, his decision made. The blacksmith drops into a full prostration on the dirt, pledging his absolute loyalty. Jared smiles. The master blacksmith is officially secured. Buku returns with the signed dismissal papers, waving his arms for attention. Aki hands over the final bag of gold, completing the transaction. The fat supervisor demands to know what else the Duke wants. Jared cracks his knuckles. The business transaction is complete. Now for the personal one. He states he just wants to throw one punch. The fat supervisor laughs, mocking the Duke's skinny frame and daring him to try. Jared smirks, clenching his fist. The punch lands with the kinetic force of a moving train, burying deep into the supervisor's face. Buku goes airborne, launched across the cavern by pure physical strength. Jared drops a single coin to cover the medical bills. Violence has its price. He warns the unconscious man never to assault an innocent worker again. Jared turns to Aki and Asura. The mission is complete. The trial for the corrupt mine officials will begin soon. Jared secures his prize and leaves the cavern. The Plena Spa, an absurdly expensive luxury resort. Jared removes his cloak, preparing to wash off the mine dust. Aki stammers, refusing to get in the water. Jared pulls his shirt off. Aki turns bright red, covering their mouth in shock. Jared glances back, confused by the exaggerated reaction to a simple noble's physique. He assumes the merchant is just intimidated by royal presence. He walks away, leaving Aki to compose herself. He sinks into the hot water, calculating the profit potential of building a similar spa in Caribbean. Expanding the industrial district to include luxury resorts would double their revenue. He spots Aki sitting on the steps, wrapped entirely in a thick towel. Aki lies about excessive body hair to avoid joining the Duke in the bath. The financial manager aggressively refuses to undress. Jared shrugs, accepting the ridiculous excuse without a second thought. He closes his eyes, letting the exhaustion of the raid drain into the water. The young lord remains completely oblivious to his subordinate's actual gender. Aki watches him sleep, relieved the secret remains safe. Jared mutters in his sleep, his mind still working through political strategies. He falls into a deep rest against the marble edge. The Foffer Kingdom, a sprawling, decadent city built on strict class divides. Jared escorts Asura's family through the streets, finalizing their extraction. He notes their meager belongings. Years of constant relocation have stripped them of possessions. He asks if they packed everything. Asura laughs it off, admitting poverty makes packing incredibly fast. Jared orders Aki to prep the Zoomer villa back in Caribbean for their immediate arrival. Aki bows, promising to handle the accommodations personally. The family bows deeply, overwhelmed by the incredible generosity. Aki confirms the long-range teleportation circle will handle the transit in seconds. Jared assures them he will follow shortly after completing one final task. At the dungeon entrance, an armored guard demands the extortionate passing fee. Jared drops a gold coin into the plated hand without hesitation. The guard halts him anyway. He lowers his spear, moving to conduct a physical search. Jared flashes a brilliant, fake smile, holding his arms wide. The guard waves him through, his attitude shifting instantly after receiving a second coin. Another squad of guards violently shake down a poor traveler nearby, enforcing the corruption. Jared glares at the scene. The entire kingdom rots from the inside out. It is a place where money buys absolute compliance. The line for the standard dungeon route stretches out into the courtyard. A guard hands a piece of stale bread to a waiting traveler. The traveler slips a gold coin into the bread crust to secure a better spot. The guard pockets the bribe instantly. Jared watches the transaction. He promises to tear the corrupt structure down with his own hands. He intends to bring permanent change to this entire continent. The fallen underground mosque. Two identical stone archways lead into the dark. A veteran hunter warns Jared that course B is a guaranteed death sentence. Jared thanks the man for his concern but refuses to turn back. The hunter shakes his head, assuming he just watched another arrogant rookie walk to his grave. Course A leads to standard loot and lower-tier monsters. Most hunters stick to the safe path, sharing knowledge to survive. Course B demands a minimum party of 15 elite hunters to survive the descent. Jared walks into the abyss completely alone. He intends to monopolize the boss drops without any witnesses. He checks Delrook's bracelet. The nightmare gauge requires serious farming. He plans to stack his stats while descending the lethal corridors. The continent is massive. He needs every advantage he can grab. The massive stone doors of the inner sanctum loom ahead. He swallows hard. The real challenge starts here. He activates the subspace ring, pulling the stolen Tanex suit. The mechanical armor materializes in the dark corridor. He steps into the casing, the metal plating wrapping around him seamlessly. System diagnostics confirm pure stability. Magic power sits at 100%. He grins behind the visor, feeling like a comic book superhero. He launches himself through the entrance, the thrusters pushing him forward at breakneck speed. Another hunter spots him flying past the window, absolutely stunned. The hunter assumes the flying man is was using some illegal exploit to bypass the mobs. Jared sticks to the ceiling, bypassing the ground-level aggro zones completely. The dark elf tracker watches from the shadows, furious at his tactical efficiency. She glares at the telemetry data. She believes she would be a vastly superior pilot for her own creation. The suit performs flawlessly, ignoring the standard labyrinth mechanics entirely. She grits her teeth, analyzing his impossible flight path. She curses herself for not planting a communication stone in the armor before he stole it. She decides to keep watching, refusing to be impressed by his stolen valor. A goblin horde wanders the halls, entirely unaware of the flying metal golem above them. He glides over the trap panels, untouched and unbothered. He maneuvers through the tight corridors with absolute precision. He touches down cleanly outside the final boss chamber. He flashes a peace sign to absolutely nobody, celebrating the flawless stealth run. The tracking elf mutters in disbelief. 8 rooms cleared without a single monster alert. She stares at her monitor. He reached the end in record time. 2 hours later, the room of the fallen. He scans the massive cavern. The air is thick with heat and frost. He searches the vast chamber for the targets. His eyes lock onto the massive beasts. Valari the flame lizard and Valero the frost lizard sleep on the jagged stone islands. He smirks. Time to farm the absolute best loot in the dungeon. He hovers mid-air. The flight system renders their ground-based attacks entirely useless. In the game, players spent weeks devising creative tactics to beat this dual boss room. Entire guilds worked together to break the dungeon mechanics. Thanks to their sacrifice, multiple patch notes had to fix the broken exploits. But this is 10 years before the developer patch notes nerfed the exploit. He has full access. He refuses to fight the massive lizards fairly. He zeroes in on a tiny floating rock near the ceiling, the designated safe zone. Countless players died testing every inch of this room to find this exact spot. Every other platform in the room is rigged to collapse. Striking from the false platforms guarantees a lethal counterattack. The false platforms crumble under the slightest pressure. The lizards would crush a grounded player in seconds with their sudden leap attack. A direct hit from those jaws guarantees excruciating pain and instant death. Jared locks his thrusters and touches down. He lands cleanly on the singular safe rock. The walls around him are immune to elemental damage, creating a perfect sniper nest. He activates the Ring of Saint Ifnis, adjusting the artifact settings. He doubles his divine power output, preparing the ultimate artillery strike. The magic circle flares to life around his gauntlet. A concentrated magic missile streaks across the cavern. The blue beam slams into Valari's head. The flame lizard shrieks in agony. A second blast nails Valero. The frost beast thrashes wildly. Both monsters roar, searching blindly for the attacker. Jared capitalizes on their massive physical weakness. He laughs from his perch. The monsters stare blankly at the ceiling. Both monsters suffer from severe vision degradation. They rely entirely on their enemies' divine power signatures to track targets. Valero sniffs the air, trying to pinpoint the magic source. The frost lizard leaps toward a phantom signature, crashing violently into the stone wall. Valari thrashes against the cavern floor, confused by the overlapping magical signals. The beasts turn on each other, completely disoriented. Jared charges a massive golden laser. The lizards snap their jaws at thin air, chasing ghosts. He fires point-blank into the chaos. The explosion rattles the cavern pillars, burying the beasts in fire. The flame lizard bleeds from a dozen deep wounds, roaring blindly. Valero rears back, preparing a massive elemental counterattack. Valari unleashes a massive breath of flame. Valero counters with a breath of ice. The elemental beams collide in the center of the room. Jared watches the friendly fire decimate their health bars. The clashing elements create a devastating shockwave that tears through their thick scales. The two boss monsters tear into each other, entirely ignoring the real threat. Valero hisses, clamping its jaws toward its brother. Jared laughs, completely untouched in his safe zone. Valari channels a desperate inferno blast directly at his location. The flames engulf the cavern ceiling. Jared realizes the attack is an enhanced skill designed to bypass the safe zone logic. The dual breath attacks merge into a lethal area of effect blast. He triggers the fly skill, launching himself out of the explosion radius a millisecond before impact. He praises the dead players who figured out this specific evasion timing. He raises his gauntlet, ready to return fire. A colossal barrage of magic missiles rains down on the bewildered beasts. The lizards scream as the concentrated barrage shreds their armor. He chuckles. The massive hitboxes make aiming entirely unnecessary. He maneuvers through the cavern, taunting the blind monsters. He casts a broad area buff spell across the entire battlefield. The pure divine energy floods the room, blinding the lizard's secondary senses completely. He praises the developer oversight that allows divine buffs to act as flashbangs against these specific bosses. 30 minutes of continuous bombardment follow. The suit's stability holds perfectly. The transcendental linkage keeps his mana reserves intact while the monsters tear themselves apart. The massive beasts collapse against the cavern walls, thoroughly exhausted. Their health bars drop into the critical red zone. Valero attempts to scale the cavern wall, desperate to reach the flying human. The lizard slips on the slick stone. Valero plummets toward the jagged rocks below. Both beasts roar in absolute fury, preparing one final combined strike. Jared charges his final attack. A synchronized breath of flame and ice mirrored through his own magic. He smirks behind the visor. Time to end it. He ignores the suit's warning alarms. He can repair the minor damage later. 13,000 units of magic energy concentrate in his palm. The system confirms the lethal payload is locked. He triggers the finishing strike. The targeting matrix zeroes in on the exhausted lizards. The massive beam obliterates the remaining distance. The resulting detonation vaporizes both boss monsters instantly. The system explodes with level up notifications, bumping him up 25 levels. 2 legendary titles unlock: Dignity of a Solo Clearer and A Song of Fire and Ice. He touches down on the cracked stone floor to inspect the loot. The elemental title proves he just achieved a feat usually reserved for endgame players. His elemental defense stats skyrocket, granting immunity to extreme heat and cold. He checks his updated character sheet, thrilled with the permanent upgrades. He walks toward the center platform where the boss corpses dissolved. 5-star artifacts scatter the debris. An ocarina, a heavy book, a braided necklace. He tosses the legendary items into his subspace storage to distribute later. The Dark Elf tracker analyzes his battle logs, utterly horrified by his precision. He cleared the lethal dual boss encounter while taking less than 2% damage. She swallows hard. He isn't just strong. He is a mechanical genius. She swears to track him down personally, eager to meet the ultimate pilot. September 5th. Morning at the Caribia estate. The inner circle lines up in the grand hall, dressed in formal attire. Jared laughs, surprised by the heavy suits and dresses. Aki pouts, claiming this is the standard fashion for modern nobility. Jared points out that men wearing skirts and heavy eyeliner is a ridiculous trend. Aki huffs, calling the Duke's fashion sense hopelessly outdated. Jared shifts gears. Asaro's family is safely settled into their new home. Kerman, the blacksmith's wife, has requested to cook a meal for them as thanks. Jared turns to Chef Mary, approving the kitchen collaboration. Julian steps forward, visibly nervous. He asks why they were summoned so formally. Chloe assumes the worst. She thinks someone is getting fired. Jared shuts that down immediately. He intends to keep this crew together for life. The tension in the room evaporates completely. He calls Julian forward to receive his gift. He hands the sage a dark braided necklace. Julian holds the artifact, unsure what it does. Jared instructs him to put it on. The sage feels a sudden surge of physical freedom and energy. Jared calls Aki next. He drops a heavy leather-bound book into her hands. The Journal of Fortuna, the ultimate guide to continental commerce. Aki clutches the book like a religious text, her eyes shining with pure greed. Valdez steps forward to receive his assigned artifact. Jared hands him the Ocarina of Truth. The artifact passively amplifies negotiation skills as long as the user speaks the truth. Valdez bows deeply, thrilled to possess the ultimate political weapon. Jared turns to Mary. Everyone else is dismissed to test their new gear. He clears his throat, preparing to discuss a highly personal matter with his chef. He hesitates, unsure how to approach the sensitive topic. Mia kicks the door open, screaming about her mother's boyfriend. Jared smirks. The secret is out. Mary turns bright red, absolutely mortified. The young girl points an accusing finger, demanding to know if the Duke is going to scold her mom. Jared laughs, entirely amused by the chaotic interruption. Mary stammers, trying to shush her daughter. Lakias, the old man who spent his entire youth training alone. The veteran warrior finally found someone worth fighting for. Mary's husband passed away years ago, leaving her to raise Mia alone. Lakias relentlessly pursued her heart until she finally agreed to a date. Mary lowers her head, apologizing for bringing personal drama into the estate. She fears the rumor mill will distract from the manor's operations. Jared waves it off. He fully supports their relationship. He promises that nothing will interfere with their happiness under his roof. He takes a slow sip of his tea, enjoying the peaceful morning. Mary smiles, deeply relieved to have her lord's blessing. Mia cheers, ready to scold Lakias herself if he messes up. Jared sets his cup down. The war is coming, but for today his people are happy.